This is 95.7 The Game.
That's right. Get your headset on, lock in, get ready for the next 3 hours because you got Warriors this week coming your way on 95.7 The Game. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone. We got big news, Dan. Did you hear? The Warriors have advanced in the NBA Cup past the group stage.
Hell, let's go. Emirates NBA Cup. I'm all
that's
about
right.
it.
Yeah, it technically has a name right next to it.
It's got a sponsor, man. Don't forget about that.
Dude, that's how you know this is just a load of crap. Like, that's exactly how you know that this entire NBA Cup is just a farce. And they're trying to bite the whole, Euro mid-season tournament, trying to, I don't know, bake an extra couple $1 million into this whole thing. Last year was just the NBA Cup, and the Lakers are apparently, they have a party for it, and they got a banner coming down at Staples, or Crypto.com. But now it's Emirates Cup. Like, seriously, are they even trying to hide it anymore? Adam Silver has done such a poor job of trying to hide whatever he actually believes the league is turning into. It bothers me, Dan.
Are we just going to roll out of bed and start hating? Like, no exchange of pleasantries?
I'm sorry, Dan. Look, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. What do you want me to say?
I will tell you this. I'm all about the NBA Cup. I like it. You know why? For whatever reason, they're into it. So my motto is, if they care, we care. Right?
That's the slogan of the whole thing. You care, we care. No, I don't know. No, but seriously, though, it does feel like the Warriors win last night. They defeat the New Orleans Pelicans. They are off to a fantastic start this season. And right now, pretty much sit atop the Western Conference. And they play again today at 5:30. You can catch that game on 95.7 The Game. Warriors Live with Mark Randy is going to be at 4:30. But the Warriors are 12-3. They have 7 road wins. They beat the Hawks 112-108. And they're now officially 3-0 in the group stages, right? I will say the one thing that I do like about the Cup,
I'm into it, bro.
I like the courts. I can't lie.
Last night looks sharp.
It's starting to grow on me.
Me too.
At first, I think it was like the Thursday night football alternate uniforms where you have basically just like Christmas colors and all lime greens or honey mustard Jacksonville Jaguar jerseys. But there's something about it. They are starting to get to me, the courts. In a good way.
Yeah, no, listen, I think the NBA Cup is, here it is. I think that the players, for whatever reason, have bought in. And if that's the case, and they're attentive, and they have energy, then then it works. Because that was exactly what it is that they were trying to accomplish for this time of the year, where football is dominant. It's like, how do we capture some interest at this juncture of the season, when we're obviously struggling for that entertainment consumer dollar? And what, bottom line, just like anything else, and this certainly pertains to all of us, is that money just dictates all of this at the end of the day. And while $500,000 doesn't sound like very much for Steph or maybe Draymond or LeBron James, hey, Pajemski winning a cup, you give me a check for 500 skahoots?
Pat Spencer.
I'll take it.
I mean, they don't make that money in lacrosse. I think that's why he's in the NBA. Pat Spencer. He's just trying to get that game check. But the last time we talked, though, I think the Warriors were 10-2. They had just beat Memphis on. Well, actually, last time.
Do you need ups to play lacrosse? Because he can get up. Do you need to elevate at any point in the game of lacrosse?
He's legitimately like the greatest lacrosse player to ever walk planet Earth. I've never seen him play. This is what I've been told.
If it's a requirement at any point to sort of elevate, to jump and maybe get an angle on as you shoot.
I feel like it's like anything else. You need explosiveness. I mean, you see those football players that can do standing backflips. Like they have hops, but do they really need to jump 45 inches on a football field? Probably not. Some of those offensive linemen that can just dunk. Like Trent Williams is probably a fantastic basketball player. He's got quick feet. I don't know if he's going to have his quick feet in Green Bay because he's not listed on or he is listed on the injury report. But the point is, I think athleticism generally travels between sports, and most NBA players, I don't know if they're the most athletic sport, but someone like Pat Spencer is both skillful and athletic. Like, in order to play lacrosse, I think you got to have pretty damn good hand-eye.
Every football player, especially when I went to college, thought to take a ball, meaning hoops. Speaking of Myles, have you seen Myles Garrett get up?
No. I can imagine the guy's like 6'4", 230.
He's got crazy hops. Like, I'm telling you, he is crazy hops, and he can dunk with either hand, take off from the free throw line. Like, his athleticism is real.
Some of the best, well, I think it is funny, though. Like, the best athlete on the Warriors is probably Kuminga. I mean, that guy is, but.
You know what my barometer is? The football's in the back seat. Let's just see.
See, that's where we're talking about skill. And I don't want to call anybody out, but just because you can't catch a football doesn't mean you're not a good athlete.
No, it's everything. If you can throw and catch a football, then we're good.
Well, but this is where people come down the road of baseball players. And I promise we're going to get into the Warriors at some point in the next 3 hours here. But this is where people come down the road of baseball players.
Last 20 minutes, we can talk Warriors, Pelicans.
But like, people think, well, the Pelicans, to me, that game is interesting from multiple standpoints. And I kind of had larger picture takeaways from it that fall under the umbrella of the Atlanta and particularly the Clippers loss, which I think was after the last show you did. But the thing about athletes is, Dan, skill is different from athleticism. You have to separate it. I mean, the quintessential example is Bartolo Colon, but some guys in the NFL are less athletes.
What about Bartolo Colon? You're telling me he's an athlete?
He's not.
Yeah, okay.
But he is skillful. He's incredibly skillful.
Oh, he's good at his craft.
That's skill.
Yeah.
I feel like we're cutting hairs here. But the point is, someone like Jonathan Kuminga is a good athlete. Pat Spencer is both skilled and an athlete, just not as skilled in perhaps basketball as he is in lacrosse.
Well, would you consider him a better athlete under the pure definition of whatever it is that an athlete is compared to that?
I think Pat Spencer.
He's a better athlete.
Pat Spencer.
Better athlete.
He's a better athlete than Pajewski.
He's a better athlete than Jonathan Kuminga. He's not a better basketball player, but in terms of athleticism, I mean, I don't think Jonathan Kuminga
I see where you're going. By the way, did you hear that Pods, I think it was a couple weeks ago, he was on with Willard and Dibbs.
Oh, he was?
Yeah, and he was talking about how...
Oh, I want to talk about him and Draymond. Come on.
Well, first and foremost, basketball is his second sport, if you ask him. Baseball is his first sport. And he
went yard at Oracle.
Yeah, I know. He also said that multiple times, and has said that just about everywhere. But he has this idea, and I believe that nobody on the Warriors is more confident than Brandon Pajemski, because he uttered these words, well, after I'm done playing basketball, I think I'm going to try the baseball thing. Like, just go full Michael Jordan. Just step off the hardwood, step onto the diamond. And he said something along the lines of, well, yeah, I mean, I was a pitcher. I could play center field. I kind of want to I think I could do the Ohtani thing.
God bless him, man. You know this. Like, half of what it is that you see athletes accomplishing at that level, at any level, it's confidence, man. It's knowing, it's the belief that when you step on the floor, no one can hold you.
Yeah, belief is overrated, I think.
I think it's a prerequisite to do what it is that they're doing.
Well, it is, but just because you're more confident than somebody else doesn't mean you're going to be better necessarily. I think it can be the difference. If a player plays with confidence at an equal skill level or perhaps at athletic level, then another player, the confidence or the belief can get them to where they need to go. But I can believe that I'm better at football than you are, Dan, but I've seen you sling the pigskin outside. I don't throw the football better than you do. Just because I believe I do doesn't mean I can.
Are you not good? Wow, I've got to rethink my relationship with you. Can you not throw a football?
Well, I can, but dude, your spirals are like Justin Herbert.
I told you what happened to one David Lombardi, my good buddy Lombardi.
Yes. All right, I can catch a football.
Yeah.
Now, that is something that I think everyone should be able to do.
Just don't throw it back to me like Lucy, the character from Peanuts and Charlie Brown, which is what he did. I was like, oh, no.
Well, you might as well just try throwing it left-handed at that point. If you
just
can't
drop kick it to me.
Oh, boy. All right. This is Warriors This Week with Evan Giddings and Devone. Huh?
Well, I feel like $1 million right now.
What do you mean?
Well, I went swimming this morning, and the temps are down to like 52 degrees. It is like winter's come early. And I feel, seriously, I feel high right now.
It's like a Game of Thrones line.
Literally high. Like I am the endorphin rush I'm enjoying right now. Like a good high. Not the high that the poisons you put in your body on a weekly. Not like you last night. I'm talking about a high on
I didn't put
life.
any poisons in my system.
Were you good last night?
No.
All right.
No. Well, not a, we'll leave it there. Not a ton of poisons. But the point is, natural highs are something that I feel like, Dan, you kind of graduate into. Like, the Warriors graduated beyond group play, right? They've graduated into, I don't know, whatever. I don't even know the construction of this tournament. Like, where do they go from here? Do they go to a knockout round? Do they host a home game? I mean, I have to do some digging before now and whenever their next group play or the next Emirates Cup game is. But
well, they just made every player, I believe, just made $50K if you get to the quarterfinals.
Oh, so you get money as you move through.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you have to get to the quarters, I believe, and then you start making money.
So if you get out of the group stage, then you get a little cash.
Yeah.
Dude, that's all going to be bet on the plane by tomorrow.
For some of those players, again, I think at the end of the day, there was an owner by the name of Charles Finley of the Oakland A's.
Dude.
Way back in the day, you can read this. He paid like Raleigh Fingers and his players.
Oh, yeah.
$300 to grow a mustache. Every single one of them did that. Every single one of them was rocking the facial hair. Because money at the end of the day is everything to players. They're no different than you and I.
No, money talks. Chris Tucker. It's funny you mentioned that because there was someone at the bar, poisons. There was someone at the bar yesterday who had a very thick mustache. And he owns the Old Chip Saloon.
Does he have the handlebars?
No, but I was trying to tell him you should go full Raleigh Fingers because he can grow a mustache in, I don't know, a week. His wife doesn't like it, but it's November. No shave November. Just let it roll. Or Movember. But the thing is, he was telling me that you need an extra, I don't know, like kind of lip rug. Like you need extra length on the end. In order to curl it, you actually have to have
product.
Yes, but you also need a lot more facial hair than you think. Like you can't just have a mustache and turn it into a Raleigh Fingers. Or I forget who else had them on the team. Might have been Joe Rudy was a part of that group. But it's funny too because Charlie Finley was like notoriously cheap.
Well, yeah.
The guy didn't want to spend money whatsoever.
He sold Rudy and Reggie Jackson once, and then I believe it was Bowie Kuhn, then the commissioner who nullified it. I mean, he was all about money.
Tried to sell his players. You're really like a mom and pop shop baseball team, which I guess is appropriate considering the current state of the A's. But so it goes. You ever grown a mustache?
I have not. And I don't like the mustache. Like back in the day, the mustache, when we're talking about baseball for that era, worked. And I know that things are cyclical in life. Like you look good in the beard. Like Gen Y, Gen X, the beard works.
I know.
And the mustache trying to make a comeback, just no. Sam Darnold he'd be so much better if he got rid of that thing.
But like Baker Mayfield can pull it off.
Does Baker have the mustache?
He's got a little lip rug.
I think he's more half shaven. Like he is the quintessential half shaven guy. Like that works on him.
I will say
rugged demeanor.
I think the NBA is the league that is probably the most manicured. Like as far as clean shaven, tapered beards.
Have you seen James Harden play basketball? I was thinking about this last night.
I actually think that beard probably takes a lot of work.
Oh, yeah. I did a show with your buddy Sammy Lubman last week, and he told me he spends like $500 on hair product.
What? We got to talk about that, Lubman.
I'm embellishing. Well, have you seen his hair?
Oh, yeah. He looks like...
I said he had the best hair in sports talk radio.
Well, you're doing a show with Brett Wisely.
I asked him if he has better hair than Troy Polamalu.
Who, by the way, is still doing Old Spice commercials.
Old Spice?
Or I think is it not Old Spice?
He's doing the shampoo commercial with Patrick Mahomes. He looks like an idiot. He's inside
I thought that was Old Spice. Am I wrong? I can't remember the product they use.
Old Spice is a cologne.
Yeah, but they also have shampoo and conditioners.
All right.
Well, all I know is because it's the cheapest one at grocery outlet. I don't really spend that much money
on hair products.
Well, just on anything. But
I haven't shampooed my hair in a year.
Why not?
Well, I use soap. I just use a bar. So I shower down at the club, and it's like showering at seriously, like a state pen, like the federal prison.
You gonna let me in that place? Am I even allowed to step foot 1 inch into the Dolphin Club, or are they gonna be gunned down by?
So here's the thing I was talking about.
Mounted snipers.
Like it's a natural high after swimming in 52-degree weather or temperature of the water temp. And then you come out and you're freezing, man. Actually, I was driving in and I'm like, who the hell's swimming in the San Francisco Bay today? Because it was freezing. It was a little light rain. And I get there, I go for a swim, and I'm in there with this guy named Mick. Shout out Mick. He used to be in the fire department for years. And I'm like, Mick, I feel like I'm on this natural high, man. I'm just gliding right now. This is amazing. I'm in the sauna, went for a great swim. He's like, tell you what, we'll cap it off. This is before I was in New York. And the temps were down at 52. And he goes, just stay here. He goes to his locker and he comes back. It's just he and I in the sauna. And he gives me a shot of scotch. And I'm like, the scotch, the sauna, and just going for a swim in 52-degree weather. I'm like, I've just left my body. I'm having an out-of-body experience. This is the greatest I've ever felt in my life. The scotch, the sauna, and the swim. Boom. Shoot me. I'm good. How about them Warriors?
By the way, Head and Shoulders. Thank you from the 650 and the 310. Paul Amalu does Head and Shoulders commercials. Thank you very much. Yeah, we've gone through our shampoo. We've gone through our manicure segment, facial hair. This is actually where I was going. When you mentioned Charlie Finley and the Warriors winning, look, they beat the Pelicans last night by 4 points. They move on to the knockout stage or the quarterfinals of the Emirates Cup. They get $50K, but it had me thinking, because they'll blow that money. Like the top dogs, it's a penny to them. Curry, Draymond, Wiggins, probably the third highest paid player, or maybe second highest paid, depending on what Draymond's salary is this year.
It's 2 poker pots.
Yeah, but I think the players on the plane that sit at the table that play poker, because in the NBA, the only place you're allowed to gamble is in the air. And I think that goes across professional sports, like MLB teams, NFL teams, all the gambling goes on the plane. And it's no limits, depending on which game you're playing. I've heard Pasoy is a big game. Hearts. What was the one they used to play in the minor leagues? I kind of forget. But the point is, on planes, that's where all the money goes down. So the Warriors table, I know there was like a famous video back in 2015. Curry, Draymond, Bogut. I forget who the fourth player was in 2015. David Lee. That they were all at the same poker table. I think the poker table now, Draymond and Steph are always there, but I believe Kyle Anderson is involved.
Buddy Hield.
And DeAnthony Melton was the fifth up until he got hurt. So not only did the Warriors lose a member of their team for the season because he's having reconstructive surgery for a sprained ACL, but they also lost one of their prized card players.
That hurts.
It does. Well, and actually,
what hurts more?
Well, he probably saved himself some money. Although, I don't know, maybe DeAnthony Melton was running a gambit while picking up frequent flyer miles.
Well, I don't know how much poker you play, but if you get somebody who's a bit of a pigeon or has got to tell, and that's your cash cow, you're making money off that guy, and you lose that person.
I kind of feel like it wouldn't be Steph. Steph strikes me as the kind of guy.
No, he doesn't lose at anything.
Exactly. I think when we were having our discussion about athletes, like he is the guy that can pick up a baseball bat, a golf club, a volleyball, a basketball.
Oh, by the way,
just do stuff with it.
Bob Myers echoed my exact sentiment when I was talking about how he is the greatest athlete of our lifetime off the court. And Bob Myers said...
Does Bob listen to Warriors This Week?
Well, he said something very, very similar. He said that, and he said this on ESPN. He said he is the greatest athlete in team sports, in the history of sports, off the field. Both on and off the field, combining the two. I put Muhammad Ali. I didn't want to hear, we're going to get a lot of Muhammad Ali pushback. I put
We've
Muhammad
talked
Ali
about this before.
But Steph Curry is, I'll get into a little Steph Curry as well today. And GOAT conversation, which I never do. I hate the GOAT conversation.
You hate ranking. You hate
There's
predictions.
Nothing more worthless than a GOAT
You
conversation.
hate sports talk radio.
Well, GOAT conversations are for complete, that's idiocy.
GOAT talks?
Yeah.
Why?
Because if you're
That's the
the
whole
greatest at that particular era, leave it alone.
You're
Babe
the guy
Ruth,
pumping up what belief is more important than skill.
Babe Ruth in the 1920s was the best to ever do it. Could he hit a fastball today? I'm not going to sit here and have a beer and debate that. That's who the hell cares? Shaquille O'Neal.
He had a beer while he was hitting.
We had this conversation, God bless, and a hot dog in that back pocket. We had this conversation last week. Shaquille O'Neal was the most dominant player during the 90s that I saw. He was the best at the game. All right? I don't know that he could play in today's NBA. We had this conversation last week. I don't know what you do if you go 5 small. What do you do with Shaquille O'Neal? How's he going to defend somebody 30 feet from the hoop? But my point is that he was, during his timeline, during his particular time of when he played basketball, he ruled the roost. And the same holds true for Babe Ruth. The same holds true for Michael Jordan. So having these conversations as to who's the greatest of all time, I can't do it, man. Just appreciate what it is that they're doing at that particular time.
Well, I think you do have to compare people between generations. Like if they're outside of a generation, I think it was David Aldridge, he and, John Hollinger from The Athletic, they recently came out with a book about the top 100 NBA players ever because they did together a top 75 list that rolled out. I think this was a couple of years ago. Might have been the year that Curry broke the three-point career record, but they had the top 50 back in the day and then the top 75 25 years later, and eventually they'll expand it and whatnot. But they came out with a book about the top 100 players, and David Aldridge was discussing the fact that he isn't a rankings guy. He doesn't like putting certain people above others, specifically from certain eras. Like the 70s in the NBA is a kind of a lost and forgotten era because much like the beginning of the 2020s, it was an era of parity. And it speaks to how, number one, dynasties are important across sports. People respect dominance. People chronicle dominance. And when you have someone like Steph Curry, who's won 4 championships, or LeBron James, who's won 4, those players can carry a league. That's why I think a lot of people just tend to associate the modern game with the beginning of Bird, Magic, and then into Jordan. But the 70s, I think there was only one team that won multiple titles, but you had the Washington Bullets, you had the Golden State Warriors who won a championship. I think the Seattle Supersonics won a championship. So there was a lot of smaller market teams that were dominant. But his point is that all those players from that era just get lost in the top 100. And so how is he supposed to compare Rick Barry, who also is another Steph Curry-esque player in that he could literally just pick up anything and be great at it. In fact, just watch him play pickleball at age 85, seemingly. He's fantastic. But those players will just get lumped into, this grand list, but it's impossible to compare Rick Barry to Kevin Durant. Like the game's so much more different. I don't know if Steph Curry would be
the Kevin Durant of his time.
Well, I don't know if Steph Curry would be as great, if there wasn't as much emphasis on the three-point shot back in the 1980s.
Yeah, there was no three-point line in the 70s.
Exactly. So would his game actually be that great? I think Curry would be great no matter what era he played in. I think to your point, Shaq would be great no matter what era he played in.
Well,
have you seen what Jokic does?
Yeah, but Jokic can step out and shoot you a three.
But there hasn't been a force as singularly dominant outside of maybe Chamberlain.
But I'm just saying, could he play in today's NBA and be great? That I'm not necessarily willing to go there because maybe, but I just don't know. Like Jokic can give you that feathery touch from a mid-range. He'll shoot a three better than 40%. And by the way, he's having an amazing season. And then he can pass. And then he can go.
He might win his 4th MVP this year.
Yeah. Either him or Giannis is having an amazing season as well.
Not the record, but
yeah, he's Milwaukee's getting better. But he can also be very Shaq-esque if he wants to. But the thing is that Shaq was just Shaq. He would get to his spot in the paint and then he'd dunk on you. Or he was a really sort of underrated athlete as far as being able to spin and pass. But the thing Shaquille O'Neal could not do is that he wasn't going behind the three-point line. I mean, he would do it, but he would do it for yucks in an all-star game.
Good call from the 510 on the Comcast Business Text line. My vote for the 3rd greatest athlete, tongue-in-cheek behind Myers and Pods, is Dave Winfield.
Oh, yeah. 6'6", and he had an opportunity with University of Minnesota.
He's the only player that's been drafted.
Played football.
In all 4 major American sports, correct?
He was a former Gopher, the University of Minnesota, yes, and he's
a good hockey player.
Really?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. He was also, I believe, taken in the NHL draft.
That I didn't know.
Massive athlete, Dave Winfield. Played for a lot of different teams, though.
Yeah. You remember a guy by the name of Howard Spira? Look it up.
Who?
Howard Spira. It's a good nugget for you today. Howard Spira was hired. He was a little knock-around gangster in New York.
Get him my immaculate grid.
In New York City. And this is when George Steinbrenner was George Steinbrenner. And George Steinbrenner found this guy and said, I want you to find some dirt on David Winfield. Like, that's what I want you to do. Go ahead and start a rumor on it.
They don't make owners like that anymore.
Oh, yeah. Howard Spira. It all got uncovered in this huge court case. David Winfield ended up suing the Yankees and George Steinbrenner.
Oh, so he wasn't a player.
He was this little knockaround guy. He was like, he's like Tommy DeVito's agent. What's that guy's now going to come?
Oh my God. Again. All right. We got to hit a break here, but I got to get Devone's quick take on that before we get back to the Warriors. I do have some thoughts about the starting lineup. Apparently, Devone's got something about Steph Curry that he wants to get into because for the first time, I think ever in the history of Warriors this week, or really since we've known each other, Devone is going to explain where he's got Curry in the GOAT conversation. It's a foreign territory.
Shock the world.
Shock the nation. It's what we do. Shout out D3. Fantastic movie. All that and more on the other side. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone, Warriors this week, 95.7 The Game.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage...
Wiggins stole it. He stole it away from Ingram, knocked it away. Waters on the break to Wiggins, comes middle, dishes right. Curry, release, splash! And Golden State's back on top. 53-51. Stephen Curry with that unbelievable release of his.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
The great Tim Roy on the call. The Warriors beat the New Orleans Pelicans 112-108 last night. They're 3-0 in group play. They move on to the knockout round in the highly touted Emirates Cup. And they're
So
officially,
into it.
12. I can really tell. They're 12-3. They're atop the West. And yes, okay, that was the error half hour. I take full responsibility. Dave Winfield drafted in 4 leagues, not 4 sports. Thank you, 415. Thank you, 510. I appreciate that. The thing about the Warriors, Dan, that I think stood out to me last night, and Curry was, that was a great call by Tim Roy. Dude, he's still so damn loose with the ball. He had a play last night where Curry, he was, I don't know, going underneath the basket and trying to kick it out to a shooter, and he just kind of with the left hand, underhand scooped
Overthrew Draymond
into the third row. Yeah. And it's, I don't know. The Warriors are a team that has never necessarily needed, I guess, a ball handler with, lock and key capabilities. Curry's always been the point. They're better off for it. But it does feel like the Warriors, to me, miss a couple things right now with this team. And, we're probably nitpicking. They're 12-3. They're going to win a lot of games just by, I think, the fact that they're going to be healthier than a lot of these teams. Like the Pelicans had, just a laundry list of people that were hurt last night. Still nearly won the game. But the Warriors, to me, still lack, I would say, like a true second guy that can handle the rock. Pods, to me, is not there yet. And I think their starting lineup, to me, it's still got questions. I think 2 of their 5 starting spots, not just from last night, but going back to the Clippers game on Monday, even earlier this week, it feels like that the Warriors are missing just something, some consistency in their starting lineup. And that's where I feel like the DeAnthony Melton injury is going to hurt them. We didn't get to see a lot of them. He only had, I think, 2 starts in 6 games, but he was supposed to be that guy, and they don't have him.
He was that guy. I think that you could see Steve Kerr and the level of confidence. And when you think about where they were during the offseason as to who's going to be the number 2, remember that was the big question. Not only that, who's going to be your starting 5 aside from, Steph and Draymond. And he finally settled just recently, which is the timing is so bad, on DeAnthony Melton. And you could see that the fit was there. And a lot of that just is predicated on Steph and how he plays off of Steph, opposite Steph, with Steph, and it was all working. Not only that, but defensively, he was the guy in the game where he got hurt that locked up Kyrie Irving. And that's what he did, is taking on those opposing guards and the opposing team's best players in many instances. And he gave you the 3 ball. He was not only a perfect fit for what they were doing, but he's a perfect fit for this system. He would have been a perfect fit for this team last year, the year before, going back to when Steve Kerr took over for the Golden State Warriors. Someone like DeAnthony Melton could play for this team. And so the timing really, really, really does suck. And losing a guy for the year, what is he, 25, 26? And he's somebody that they coveted. He's somebody that they knew this going in. Somebody like that he's sort of like a Caruso-esque, he's somebody like Steve Kerr has certain guys in this league, kind of like Kyle Shanahan and Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold. There's certain guys that are like, you can play for me. And DeAnthony Melton was one of those. It's a significant loss. It's a significant loss because finally Steve Kerr, as good as the team was playing, had a sense of security, as did the rest of the team, that he was the guy. And you talked about how he got along with Draymond and Steph on the plane. That's the other thing, is that he was a good dude. And I think that goes a long way on this basketball team. How many times has Steve Kerr made comparisons and analogies to this year's team in 2022? And he doesn't do it necessarily about sort of the X's and O's and the physical aspect on the floor, but just he says there's a vibe. There's a distinct energy on this team, on the plane, in the locker room, where that camaraderie is real. and it translated to an NBA championship to go along, obviously, with the physical tools. But he says he senses that this year. And I think one of those guys leading the parade was DeAnthony Melton, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, and it felt like it happened so quickly. I mean, he was the prized possession of the offseason. He was their biggest pickup. They signed him 20 minutes after free agency. They used the full allotment of the mid-level exception to bring in a player that, sure, he had some injury concerns. He had back injuries that kept him out for the majority of last season, but the ACL was something completely different, a little more fluky. Yeah, it hurts. It sucks. And I also think where it hurts them the most is those kind of, I guess, crunch time rotational choices that Kerr is going to have to make. Because where the Warriors have always been at their best, whether people have clamored for a center that can shoot or a traditional big, they have always been at their best when they close small with Draymond at the 5. And sure, they have a lot of bodies that they can put in right now and close with, but DeAnthony Melton was supposed to be the guy next to Steph down the stretch of basketball games, whether it was against the Clippers in crunch time, whether it was last night against New Orleans in crunch time when the Pelicans had a chance to actually tie that game. DeAnthony Melton is the guy that can pick up the best perimeter player on the other end. And I don't think it's a coincidence in the Dallas game, unfortunately, the game that he got hurt, the game flipped in the final minutes. Yes, when Curry came back in and really just started chucking up threes from left and right, but also when DeAnthony Melton checked in, when Draymond went to the 5, when they went long with Kuminga, Wiggins, Melton, Curry, and Draymond. And that 5, I think, at the beginning of this year was envisioned to be their finishing 5. Maybe not the starting 5, but their closing 5. And now they can't realize that picture. So I'm not sure what the Warriors necessarily do to overcome that, whether they address it through a trade, whether they, in the meantime, they've had Lindy Waters III kind of step into the shooting guard spot. I think there's a conversation there. But the Warriors, I know we didn't get to see a lot of it, but the absence of Melton, it's going to be missed in those close games against good teams. And while it might not be on every single night, they play San Antonio tonight. Not sure if Wembanyama's back or not. But they're going to need them to beat the best in the Western Conference and a loaded West.
Well, just think about how much more significant this would have been had this been last year, or had this been a year where you don't have this sort of depth. Yeah, we can talk about it, but there is a next man up mentality. Is Lindy Waters as good as DeAnthony Melton? No. But I think that position, it should be Podziemski. Podziemski should be slid into that number 2, but because he's in his own head and is having issues scoring the basketball, he's not ready to be a guy who's going to start right now. But I think logistically, you would think if DeAnthony Melton goes down to the perfect world, let me put Pods in there. I'm okay with Lindy Waters. The reason I was reading an article about how Lindy Waters is a guy, why he's getting an opportunity to play, is because he can catch and shoot in motion. And I found that really interesting. Because a lot of guys like Pods or even Buddy Hield to a certain degree have to come off of pin downs and need to be set in transition. He's very comfortable. And that's a quality you don't see, I guess, in a lot of players, unbeknownst to me. But being able to catch and shoot again in motion is something that he does. Not only that, but what is he, about 6'6", 6'5"? He's lengthy.
He's tall, he's long.
And he plays at a certain tempo that I think where he's in control, and he gives you a sense of security that he knows where to go with the basketball, doesn't get sped up, and I think that he can guard multiple players. I'm okay with Lindy Waters. Is he a step down? Clearly from DeAnthony Melton. But again, if this was any other year where you didn't go 12 or 13 deep, I think it'd be much more of a concern.
But that's where that spot specific, and I guess it isn't just the shooting guard position. The issue that I saw, for example, last night, is there's going to be stretches where the Warriors get nothing from 2 starting positions. And does Lindy Waters have the ability to knock down a 3? Yes. Does he make the right play? I would say the majority of the time. He's a solid player. He's the kind of guy that Kerr loves to have because Kerr doesn't have to worry about him making mistakes and bleeping up possessions. But he isn't going to... He's not going to take a possession by the horns. Like he isn't going to bail you out of a possession. He is going to be I would say, he's not a ceiling raiser. He's a floor keeper. And that's where I think the Warriors are going to have to make a choice. Because coming into the season, we talked about this. I thought Lindy Waters was good, close to 40% 3-point shooter. I think it helped the Warriors. But helped the Warriors off the bench. Helped the Warriors in spurts. I'm not sure I like Lindy Waters III as a starter for the Warriors long term. And I'm not sure how long that lasts. Just because if he's getting 15 minutes a game, if he's a member of the 13-man rotation, then I think he can really help you. But if he's at the forefront of it, I'm not really sure if that's a place that I feel comfortable with.
What often happens to players like a Lindy Waters when they're playing with Steph Curry and Draymond Green, they become very deferential. Like he does
play well alongside Steph.
He wants to defer, and that's sort of understandable when you're the new kid on the block and you got Steph out there and you certainly don't want to get on the bad side of Draymond Green, is you're looking to give it up to Steph. I think he needs to get a little bit more selfish. I think he needs to look for his shot. And before we can pass judgment on whether this works or doesn't work, we need to let it breathe. And I think somebody needs to sit him down and say, look, you can shoot it. It's just now a matter of confidence. Go ahead and let it rip. We're not going to pull you. Steph is not going to give you stink eye, and Draymond is not going to chirp at you. You are somebody that's got to space the floor. We have full confidence that you can shoot it. Pull the ripcord. You saw his hesitancy in that Clipper game. And he had an opportunity in the closing moments to shoot from the corner and win that thing. But you can see that he's going through these permutations. Well, who else is open? He needs to be a little bit more Buddy Hield. Or he needs to, I don't know, call up Klay Thompson and say, hey, how do I live life with no conscience and just jack up shots at any time and live in my own world? He needs to be a little bit more. Shooters have any good shooter, as Buddy Hield, as Steph Curry, sometimes it just becomes a matter of greed. It's a good greed, but you got to be self-centered. And he doesn't have that. I think he can shoot it. Just right now, I would give it time. I would just tell him, let it fly. I'm assuming the other guy, and I'm not very necessarily, I can't agree with you here, young fella.
The other guy.
Well, you said that there are two positions that you're not getting anything out of offensively.
On given nights for stretches, yes.
I'm assuming Lindy Waters is one.
Yes.
Don't tell me Trace Jackson Davis.
It's TJD.
No, it's not. Trace Jackson Davis is becoming one of the most solid basketball players, one of the most solid fives.
He plays 15 to 20 minutes.
Well, it's because he starts and he closes. But this guy, when he's on the floor, nobody is more sound in a pick and roll. Nobody is more sound around the basketball and knowing exactly what his role is. And nobody is more sound in terms of having the good hands. And again, when we talk about decision-making, this is the prototypical center. And so what is supposed to be for a Warrior team, if Lindy Waters, again, gets that confidence to go along with Steph and Buddy Hield and even Draymond shooting threes, he becomes the perfect counterbalance to all of that, because now you have an interior presence, because that's all he's doing is living 5 to 8 feet from the hoop. But his timing and his knowledge of balance and when to pick and roll and where to be is so valuable to that team. And with every passing game, I become more and more of a fan of that guy, because he is the pure definition of solid. And he is becoming, I think, a valuable asset for a Warrior team. And when you think about sort of, when you look at Warrior centers, going back, you mentioned Andrew Bogut, he's making a name for himself that should this team make a deep run as being one of the most effective in recent memory.
By process of elimination. Yeah, I would give you that. I think Trace Jackson Davis is a good player. He's a solid player. But it's funny because everything you mentioned about his game is on the side of the court that I don't think he helps the Warriors as much, and that's on offense. I think where his calling card is on the defensive end. Not him specifically, but him alongside Draymond. That's a damn good defensive front court.
The defense was a given. I'm just trying to illuminate you on what it is that he's doing on the offensive end.
He's a guy that cleans things up. He works hard. I think he can help you on the glass. He isn't as good of an offensive rebounder as Kevon Looney, but he can bang with a lot of centers and challenge them. At least keep them accountable.
He runs the floor for a big and for a young guy, and that's what happens when you have an aging team. That dude will lead the break more often than not. Just keep an eye on it, and he can finish. He runs the full 94 feet. Trace Jackson Davis is a gem, man. You need to stop.
No, okay. I do find it funny whenever God, there's like every single season. All right, we've done this for a couple years now. You always pick like one guy to just strike me with. And for whatever reason, this season it's going to be Trace Jackson Davis. But the issue isn't necessarily TJD himself. And this is where I'll ask you to think a little bit deeper here. When Lindy Waters III is not shooting the ball very well, last night might be an outlier. He 0 for 3, took three threes.
It's not a good game.
And Trace Jackson Davis is on the floor as well. You have two non-offensive threats. You could even put Draymond's shooting the crap out of the basketball.
I would say it's 2.5.
But he's not someone that, like, if he wants to shoot 5 threes a game, no team is going to turn that down.
Agreed.
You know, he can shoot 45% for the year, but no one's afraid of his three-point shot. So it's really just Curry and Wiggins in the starting lineup right now. You have two guys that don't give you at least the option offensively that take attention away from the two guys that are going to be scoring the basketball in Curry and Wiggins. That's my biggest issue with the starting lineup now is that TJD is a good player. Lindy Waters III, I think, is a good player. But they're not versatile offensively. I think how that five-man group is going to win games is hitting enough shots and winning defensively. But as you see, there's going to be nights where New Orleans, dude, there were some shots that like the Pelicans just should not have gotten. Like ball was shooter's bounce, thrown up errant hooks, a couple random floaters. Those shots are going to fall. They shot, I think, close to, if not above 50% of the first half. And if your starting lineup can't keep the pace, well, then I do think there's a reason to have a conversation. To me, it's less about Trace Jackson Davis. He's their starting five.
Yeah.
TJD is going to be the center for this team. But the 2 spot is one that I think is going to continuously change throughout the season.
That I agree with.
I wouldn't be surprised if tonight we see Moses Moody or Brandon Pajemski as a starting shooting guard. You know, I think Kerr likes to give things some time, and while you're winning games, you have time to experiment. But that 2 spot is up for grabs.
That I agree with you. That they need someone who's if Lindy Waters is not going to be able to shoot it, if he can't stretch or space for Steph Curry, then you have an issue. But I won't go as far as that Trace Jackson is part of that problem because Trace Jackson Davis is doing what it is that he does. If you want Trace Jackson Davis to stretch and get outside, I mean,
no.
Karl Anthony Towns is like the only guy that I know that can go outside and be a threat, or maybe Jokic. He's not that guy.
By the way, Jersey Ken's got to love what he's been seeing from the big cat.
He's
getting like 40 and 20 games.
He's amazing, no doubt. Yeah, I'm all about the Knicks.
He's the talk of the Mecca.
The Knicks get off to the slow start, but they're now beginning, and I'm not necessarily sure what's going on with Mr. Bridges out there. He's having sort of a funky start to things.
Ken, is he allowed to touch the basketball, Mikal Bridges? Oh, you got to turn your mic on, buddy. Producer, got to get that up.
But Trace Jackson Davis is perfect. We just need to leave him alone. If you want to have the conversation about somebody needs to be able to shoot, whoever's going to play that too, that's legitimate. I wouldn't factor in Trace Jackson Davis to that conversation.
That's fair. Sorry, Ken, you were saying?
I was going to say as of now, probably not. But with two guys, the big and the small in Jalen Brunson, 30 and 10 on each side. You can't complain about that right now. Knicks are rolling.
They're so glad Randall's out of town. You see what's going on in Minnesota?
We might get DiVincenzo back.
Hey, okay, first of all, you can't have him. That's the guy I want the Warriors to go get.
Yeah.
That'd be the guy, Dante DiVincenzo.
There's drama out there in Minnesota, man. They all hate each other.
Wait, what? They hate each other?
Well, they're having issues. Gobert and Ant-Man aren't getting along.
Well, yeah, he's shooting the
Randall threw the ball at
35
Gobert's
times.
feet. Yeah, it's just
give up the rock, Ant.
Well, it's not working.
Yeah, they're going to struggle, I think, and it has to do. I hate to say
it has to do
with Randall, but
the West isn't, at least for this quick little sample size. It's not like the big bad wolf that we thought it would be. Remember at the beginning of the year, we're going 8 deep. I don't know about that, which is good for the Warriors.
Well, there's 5 teams with double-digit wins. I mean, I think that there are. It's more top-heavy than we anticipated because I think we assumed that, all right, it'd be Oklahoma City.
They're legit.
Well, I was not as bullish on Minnesota, but I thought they'd be better than they are.
Oh, yeah. Minnesota was supposed to be a team.
Denver. And then I don't know. Were you that high on Dallas?
Yeah,
Okay.
because of Lively. Well, I don't know. I should take that back.
I didn't think that they were a Western Conference Finals team last year, or Finals team, but
I
to
take
their
that
credit,
back.
they made a run.
I'm not big on them because of their defense. I'm contradicting myself.
The Phoenix Suns, I know they're going to run into issues just because of how top heavy their roster is. So anytime one of their big three misses guys, they're going to be in trouble. But to me, it was Oklahoma City and Denver. I think those were the two teams I was most concerned about this season. And OKC, I think, is still, they just got Hartenstein back. They're a team to be reckoned with. But it's not like the Eastern Conference where, dude, the Miami Heat right now, it's 13 games. They are the 5 seed. They're 6-7.
Yeah, it's a joke.
I mean, what are we doing here? The Minnesota Timberwolves are 8-7, and they're in 10th place in the West.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with you that those teams aren't necessarily scary.
You want to get rid of the conferences? 1 through 16?
No, I do like the conference. I think it means something when you have some sort of, whether it's a division or a conference.
Regional rivalries.
Yeah, because look, there's going to be up years, there's going to be down years. It does feel like the West has kind of been ahead of the East for a good period of time. But I don't think you can just go 1 through 30. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
You know who people are sleeping on?
Yeah.
And another reason why you did not want Paul George. So he leaves L.A. Ty Lue's got himself a little ball club out there. And hey, you want Norm Powell or do you want Paul George right now?
Give me Storm and Norman. By the way, the Clippers, well, they might be the kryptonite. Warriors can't beat them.
Ty Lue slows it down, mucks it up, and he likes defense.
Yeah, which is interesting considering James Harden is the guy pounding the rock.
Yeah, but James Harden's about distributing right now. The last 2 years, this guy he's all about the assist.
Well, I think they are similar to the Warriors from the standpoint of they don't have, Powell's an effective scorer, but they pretty much play through one guy. Curry doesn't handle the ball as much as Harden, but the rest of their team buys in on defense. They slow the game down. Like the Warriors play more in transition than the Clippers do, but they slow the game down and they just kind of constrict you. Like they're kind of like an anaconda. Like they'll just wrap themselves around you defensively and just constrict. And I think that's what gives the Warriors trouble, or at least what stood out to me so far through 15 games. They can and will get turnover happy, but specifically if teams have the ability to get in their jerseys.
And then not shooting free throws well. Do we attribute that to the wall out there at the Intuit Dome?
You love the wall.
I think it's silly. I think it's just...
Shout out Pink Floyd.
I think it's just...
That one went over my head, I'm not going to lie.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Pink Floyd in the wall?
I know Money.
Wow.
That's about it.
All in all, we're just another...
Dude, Ken was playing some songs for me in his car last night. I didn't know
let's stop right there. What are we doing in Ken's car in the middle of the night?
The Deftones. Well, he was taking me to the Poison, that we were talking about earlier.
Gotcha.
But he was playing with the Deftones. I know the Delphonics. Philadelphia.
Deftones and Presidents of the United States of America. Do you know that one?
Well, I think there's 56 of them.
I do not.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, gotcha, Ken.
Gotta go to break.
Oh, we do. All right. Hey, actually, Jason, hold on. Actually, can we sneak Jason in real fast? Yeah.
Hey, no. You know why?
Why?
Jason needs time.
Okay.
And you know why? Because he's not another brick in the wall.
You shut up. Jason, I promise, hang on through the break. We'll get you on the other side. We'll put you on the 95.7 The Game wall if we have something along those lines.
Pink Floyd references for the next 3 hours.
I sure hope not. You're going to be doing a show with Ken. 888-957-9570 is the number. This is Warriors This Week at 95.7 The Game. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone, back after this.
Valvoline Instant Oil Change is your 15-minute drive-through oil change.
Curry, crossover dribble, stumbles with the dribble, finds Jackson Davis flying down the baseline for a dunk. All eyes were on number 30. The gravity of Curry showing there.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Is this that Pink Floyd guy?
Oh, my God, Ken. What do you do with this kid?
What?
This Gen Wire.
6'6".
Who David Gilmour is, man.
I know Happy Gilmore. 669 Comcast Business Text Line. I apologize. I guess it's just Deftones, not the Deftones. Just like Eagles, not the Eagles. Did you know? All right, let's kick things off here on Warriors This Week. 888-957-9570. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone here with you for the next 2 hours, 9 to noon, every single Saturday here on 95.7 The Game. Warriors 12-3, 4-point win last night against the New Orleans Pelicans. They advanced to the knockout stage of the highly touted NBA Emirates Cup. And Jason's been waiting patiently through the commercial break. Start us off, Jace. What's going on? Jason's in Oakland. How we doing?
Man, and I'm doing great. Appreciate you guys, man. You guys run a great show. Man.
Thank you.
All right. So I want to talk a little bit about the Warriors, man. 12-3 start is great in my opinion. You know, I had 50 wins pegged as the kind of a benchmark for this team this year, and I thought it was doable because we've got 45, 46 last year, a ton of close games. Like if we pulled out a third of those close games from last year, I feel like we would got to 50. And then we had the Draymond thing. So I feel like we're starting off great, you know, and if we pretty much keep the same pace, man, we're getting close to 60. But if we still want to hit that 50 mark, man, we basically got to go get another 38 wins, 38-29 the rest of the way. We're 9 over 500 now. So if we go 9 over for the rest of the season, we get to the 50. I feel good about that. And I don't think that the Warriors need a quote unquote secondary scorer. I don't think you find that in the trade market. I think you give up too much if you get that guy. You'd be better off trying to find a margins player that can really kind of make a difference, kind of swing things your way. I think they kind of need to lean into the quote unquote strength in numbers deal, you know, and quit swinging for the big fence. Get another doubles guy in there. Get a you know, in the baseball reference. Get a guy in here that can steal you a few bases. I know we got a D team. I know it's not a whole bunch of slots left for more role players, but I think the biggest difference between the 22 team, that championship team, you know, besides Poole, besides guys like Bielitsa, that was the stretch 4, stretch 5 type player, was that Porter role. The biggest difference was that Porter role, and it might sound real crazy, but I actually think we got the Porter role in our system in the G League. Kevin Knox.
Hey, Jason.
Porter wasn't known for his.
Jason, sorry to cut you off there. If you had to, in the meantime, figure out the shooting guard position, who would you prefer to see at the 2?
On our current team?
Yeah.
I actually like Lindy there. Okay. I like his size. He's not a liability. He's not bringing much. He's not bringing much. He may get you a 3-pointer each half, you know. But I think there's really something to when Kerr says he doesn't want to mess with the rotations. I really think there's something there. Maybe help guys find their roles. You know, keep them consistent, keep them going, keep them in their normal roles. Let Lindsey do it. Lindsey ain't hurting. I don't think it's hurting the team.
Gotcha, Jason.
I would like for us to get off to better starts.
Yeah.
And then last thing about Podziemski, I really, really worry. He's one of my favorite Warriors so far, man. I got a thing for white ballers, bro. I'm sorry, but no budge pudge. I like this kid, man. But the only problem I got with his game, besides that shot not dropping, he's got a snout on him, man. He's one of the NBA players with a real nose, bro. In the Scottie Pippen mode, in the Richard Hammerson mode, and those players, especially with the way he plays, I just don't want to see him in that mask playing like Rip. I really, you know, he caught another elbow the other game, and he just took the mask off. And if you guys remember, Rip didn't start off in that mask. he kept catching blows to that nose until where it finally said, hey, you're risking some permanent damage if you don't play with this mask on. And, you know, I don't want to tease the guys, but he's got a nose on him, bro. And the way he plays, he's going to constantly get banged in that face.
I got you, Jason. Appreciate the call. Yeah, I mean, he's right. Podziemski's a
proud Polish American,
first team All Beak. But Pods he's an interesting player. I mean, to me, I think Jason's right that as long as you're winning games, you don't necessarily mess with things. I think there were so many starting lineups last year. And even, at the beginning of the season, I think there were 7 starting lineups in the first 10 games. But the Warriors have the luxury of being able to win while experimenting. And that's, I think, what I would champion for is experimenting with the starting lineup. It's kind of like the preseason. I think a big reason the Warriors got off to such a good start, the 6-0 record is one thing, but it felt like preseason is a time where you're trying to essentially find the identity of your team. You're figuring out roles. I still think that the roles aren't necessarily defined for the Warriors, and a big reason is because of Melton's now season-ending injury. But Kerr now has the luxury of being able to kind of mess with things in games and also still be able to win the majority of them because his team's more together, his team's more healthy, and just simply better than a lot of teams like the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah, I think you're going to get back to sort of that experimentation with the absence of DeAnthony Melton and of Lindy Waters. Now, Lindy Waters I like, and I'm willing to continue to roll him out there. But as we had talked about in the previous segment, if he's not going to give you a steady diet of outside shooting specifically, then you may see, once again, potentially Buddy Hield getting an opportunity, Podziemski, who I think logistically would fit at that number 2 spot. Speaking of Podziemski, he is really fascinating because of what it is that Draymond said to the media the other day. But Podziemski had a good game last night. And he's one of those guys that, while he doesn't necessarily have to score the basketball, and we know that he's in his own head about shooting, he put in so much time during this offseason. He's got that mid-range Jimmy, which he didn't have last year. He really worked on his game offensively, specifically. And I think he had huge expectations that this was going to be a breakout season for him. And it has not gone according to plan, at least thus far. And we are still not even ankle deep into the season. And you can clearly see that the guy is so emotional after missing a shot. And Draymond intimated as much as like, you got to stop that, man. Don't even worry about your last shot. But he's still, even if he's not contributing offensively, such a valuable basketball player to the Golden State Warriors. Like that guy and his rebounding, his ability just to know where people are. I always talk about balancing the floor, taking charges, everything that he does. And I don't want to hear plus and minuses. I'm not into that stat. Forget that. I can just see with an eyeball that guy makes your team better. And he does not need to score the basketball in order for him to do that. He is such a valuable key to the success of the Golden State Warriors, along with Trace Jackson Davis. Very similar in the way they play because they don't impact the game necessarily by putting up 25 to 30 a game.
All right, well, actually, I want to listen to this sound because what you're talking about is Draymond after, I believe, the Hawks game where they ran roughshod over Atlanta, but he had an interesting breakdown of Podziemski and what so far I think is appropriate to call a sophomore slump. He hasn't been shooting the ball well. He hasn't been scoring at the same level he had last year.
But Steve, stop short of that. A sophomore slump, if you look at it exclusively as far as scoring the basketball, he's still a very, very good player, and he's contributing to wins. Again, whether it's the defensive rebound, whether it's the ability to take charges, what he does coming into the game, I think is a huge plus. We cannot look at this guy exclusively through the lens of, are you scoring a basketball? That makes you either good or bad. I still think he's a major contributor. Yes, he's in his own head about what it is that he thought he was going to do potentially as far as all the work he did in the offseason in scoring the ball, and he's been, he's slow to the party in that regard. But I would stop short of saying that it's a sophomore slump because he's still a major contributor to the success of this team.
Well, here's what Draymond Green had to say after the Hawks game.
It's hard, and I don't say this from experience of myself. I say this from experience of watching people. It's hard having a great rookie season and then coming back and having the second year as good or better. It's tough. That's why you've always heard of a sophomore slump. It's a very tough thing to do. And I think for him, he's just put so much pressure on himself for the player that he wants to be and that he thinks he should be, and it's unnecessary. Because what he's special at is doing all the other things on the floor. When you put the pressure on yourself, like, I got to make this shot, but there are some guys that have that pressure, and they have to because that's what they do. If you don't have to have that pressure, and I say that from experience, don't put that pressure on yourself because it's hard night in and night out to live based on whether you make shots or not. It's a tough thing to do. Only the greatest can do it. And I think he's capable of becoming a really, really, really good player in this league. But why put the added pressure on yourself? Why beat yourself up? We believe in him. The amount of pressure that he puts on himself with each shot is insane. And so I'm saying this also, so I hope you hear it. Me and Steph talk to him every day. Like, who cares? Miss 7 of them. No one cares but you. Like, you're the only person thinking about the shots you miss. No one else is thinking about it. But he kind of puts this pressure on himself of what he needs to be, and every shot means so much. Man, it's a soft Wednesday in November. That shot don't mean that much. But he carries that weight. And I think anyone who carries that amount of weight in anything, it affects you negatively. And I hate that for him, and so that's something that we've been trying to talk to him about. Stop reacting to everything that goes wrong for you. No one cares but you. Nobody else. You know why? Because what we care about is all of the other things that you do. So if you do all of those things well, and that can keep you on the floor, who cares about the shot?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously, an in-depth, long answer from Draymond about maybe not, I don't want to use the word sophomore slump, though he used it, but Podziemski's clearly pressing. Like, he's in his head probably more than, I would say, any other player on the team. But again, they're winning games. And I think he has helped them win games. He helped them tremendously a couple weeks ago in Houston when Curry didn't play. Hit a couple of big buckets in the fourth quarter. And that was him scoring the basketball. But I do think that Draymond is trying to, I imagine behind the scenes is also telling him this as well. Like, okay, you don't have to be a 20-point per game scorer to help us win. In fact, we don't need you to be that guy. Podziemski was really good in his rookie season at basically just doing everything around Curry, Wiggins. Last year was Clay, Chris Paul, but basically cleaning up all the little things. And I think that's where his true value is right now. I think he's going to get better at scoring the ball. He's not going to continue to shoot 20% from three. Last year, I think he was around 38. I don't think he's a volume three-point shooter. I don't think he's a volume scorer, but he's a player that, whether it's off the bench or alongside Steph, wherever they choose to use him, he makes the right play. And I think that is something that it's hard to quantify, but when you play with him and you watch him play, I think the Warriors will tell you, like, no matter who's on the floor, he's the guy you want in most situations, I think.
Yeah, again, I think he put in so much work because he's got a mid-range now. He didn't have that. Last year, he was feast or famine. It was a three, or was that sort of weird running hook or those little crafty moves that a left-hander can only do. But he didn't have anything in between. And now he's got this mid-range. He put all this work in, and I think the expectations and the bar was a lot higher.
But the Warriors put that on him. It wasn't just the other part of the cut later was Draymond saying it's y'all's fault. He was talking about the media.
Now that I find fascinating because I think in a week that saw it started with Rich Kleiman, who I'm not a big fan of. I've dealt with this guy and his venture capital company, but he was talking about how, and well, actually, I have it here. Where is it? I just brought it. Oh, so this is what Rich Kleiman happens to be. I don't know if he's
the boardroom or something.
I don't know if he happens to be the agent or maybe he's the business partner
of Durant.
Kevin Durant. Those two are sort of joined at the hip, and they're also very good friends. And so this is what Kleiman wrote, and it got a lot of play. We can all acknowledge that sports is the best part of society that universally brings people together. So why can't the coverage do the same? It's only clickbait when you say it. So basically, it's like, why does the media always have to promote negative coverage when you're talking about basketball players and sort of sports in general? Why fascinate on that? And then to take it a step further, LeBron James, who's never had an original thought in his life, decided that he's going to leave social media for the time being, sort of on the heels of what it is that Rich Kleiman is saying. Not, he's
off social media, by the way, Dan.
It's not surprising that, here you have Draymond Green, who's very close to LeBron James, starts that press conference saying, "You all," meaning taking a point, pointing a finger at the media. Now that, I love me some Draymond, but that really, really, that rattles me. That bothers me on a myriad of levels. But just to get your initial thoughts.
Well, I think, all right, in regards to Rich Kleiman, I do think that when you make as much money as some of these athletes do, you invite criticism. You just do. When a player makes, and this is across sports, it's a big reason why people are all of a sudden, a little sheepish on Brock Purdy, or they're wondering what Brock Purdy's going to be, what he's going to make, because the money sets a level of expectation. Pods is not a max player, but if he was, people would be concerned about him. The fact that Mikal Bridges is not shooting a lot in New York, there's an expectation of him doing something higher than the level that he's at because they gave up 4 first-round picks, pick swaps. They gave up a lot to acquire his services. So there's a level of expectation that comes with that. I don't necessarily look at it as negative criticism or the fact that we're only focusing on the negative. To me, in general, society just tends to overlook all the positive. When things are good, you don't tend to talk about it because things are good. You don't have to highlight how great the world is because you live it. But when things are bad, it catches your eye more. And so I think that's why, I don't know if all NBA coverage is negative. I would push back against that. But I think that the players hear it more because people are louder, there's more platforms, and a lot of people are not happy with how much money these players make and how the productivity seems to wane. So now with pods, I do disagree with Draymond from this standpoint. It wasn't the media that called Brandon Podziemski a future All-Star. It wasn't the media that called Brandon Podziemski untouchable. It wasn't the media that set a level of expectation for this player this offseason that he was going to be a cornerstone piece moving forward. Whether he's that guy or not, the media didn't do that. The Golden State Warriors did that through the media. So if Draymond wants to point a finger at anybody, I hate to break it to him, but it's got to be at his own jersey. It's got to be on the logo on the front of his jersey because the Warriors have told us through the media what they feel about this player. And Brandon Podziemski, to his own demise, perhaps, is a guy that was also talking about this summer, taking 8 to 10 threes a game, ditching the floaters, working on the pull-ups, developing a mid-range that we're beginning to see. But those are all pieces of his game that are coming slowly. And it feels like the Warriors have promised us this player that is a bit unreasonable to expect.
I don't think the media has changed. And I'm really overly sensitive when I hear, whether it's in political circles or the Draymond Greens, and you clump the media, it's like your fault. It's y'all's fault. Or it's the media is so negative. Look at the media when Draymond Green came in 2012 and he surprised and shocked the world with as good as he was. Nobody reaped his praises more than the media. The media will glom onto you if you're good, and if you're somebody that's having a good season, they will blow you up. They'll sensationalize to a certain degree. And then, yes, the media will also, we're looking, we're, as they like to say, because they don't have these things anymore, they're selling papers. So at the end of the day, yes, do they glom onto things if things aren't going well for Joel Embiid in Philadelphia? You bet your ass that everyone's going to sort of jump on that wagon. But the media has never changed. And that's sort of what you sign up as an athlete. And I think everybody sort of agrees and recognizes that. But what he needs to do, and this is for LeBron James as well as Rich Kleiman, is that they're conflating, I think, social media, which to me is one separate entity, and very different from what it is that you and I do when you go to a press conference and you're asking questions to LeBron James and or Steve Kerr. Now, social media, I would agree with you. It's gotten to a point
It's toxic.
where it's toxic and it's not healthy for anybody. But let's not mix the two, because social media, yes, if it's some guy who's living in his mother's basement that's passing judgment on your life, well, that's up to you as to whether or not you want to listen to that person and let it disturb you one way or the other. But what it is that for those of us that take an oath, so to speak, to journalism and be quote unquote objective is entirely different from that animal. So the idea that LeBron James says is that I'm getting off of social media because of the negativity, and this is sort of on the heels and echoed by what it is that Rich Kleiman had to say about the negative aspect and what's going on in terms of sports. And then you have Draymond Green saying it's y'all, meaning the media. Well, we're putting everything under the same umbrella, because the media and what it is that we do is very different from what's going on in social media and what it is that you're reading on Instagram or TikTok or wherever it is that they're getting sort of that negative feedback.
Well, and also to look, Draymond, you're part of the media. Like you host a podcast, you give opinions, you provide takes on players, you call out members of the Oklahoma City Thunder for doing interviews together and calling them soft, or that's not how championship teams are built or act. Now, that might be a little bit of a mind game. You know, I think he's trying to play that game with a team that he identifies as a real threat. But you do the same thing. To me, social media, people screaming into a void and me being mad at an egg avatar is completely different than... I've never seen, and I haven't been to as many press conferences as you have, I haven't talked to as many athletes as you have, Dan, but from the few years that I've had a chance to do this on a relatively day-to-day basis, that doesn't happen at the presser. That doesn't even happen behind the scenes in some of those conversations that you have in locker rooms. I would say the majority of media members are pretty respectful. Some are to the point. Some are a little more blunt than others. But no one is ever putting, I don't know what Draymond is, kind of insinuating the media is doing. They might write about these players, but I don't think anybody has done something so disrespectful and I guess the Kleiman and Draymond thing are a little bit separate. But in regards to Kleiman and all this social stuff that apparently now has LeBron James off his Twitter account and off of IG and all the rest, I don't think it's really as bad as they're making it out to be. I just think that there's more opportunities for people to have voices. There's more platforms than ever. And so it's kind of like, like you remember, I don't remember, but there was in the 1970s, after Bruce Lee passed away, there was all of these Bruce Lee, fakes, right? There was all these different Bruce Lee movies that were made, and there was all these different kinds of Lees, and people were trying to basically just jump onto the martial arts train. And a lot of the movies were crap, but they were cash grabs. There were a few that were pretty good, but not all of them were. And now there's been such a flooding of the market or a flooding of social media that you're naturally going to hear the loudest voices. And I think the way to get people's attention is just to go over the top. And that's really what they're hearing. That's what they're reacting to. But it's not reality. I don't think those people deal with, I don't know. But I have to imagine no one's going to walk up to you on the street and tell you suck. I don't know. Maybe you go 0 for 12 in an elimination game. But to me, it's a little bit overblown, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, and then, regionally, it depends on what market you're playing in. And then we got to get to a break. But Rich Kleiman, so I just want to reiterate this, when he talks about how sports universally brings people together. So why can't the coverage do the same? When you use the word coverage, you're talking about, to me, I interpret that as the media.
I actually think the media has been very positive lately, and that's might be a reason why the NBA is not.
Yeah, and if you want
interested.
Positive, or you want people just to say what it is that you think should be a positive message, go move to North Korea. Go to El Salvador. Go live in a dictatorship where it's state-run television and everybody says, oh, yes, it's a great day today. We're all doing well. Meanwhile, half the country's starving to death. Now, the freedom of the press is a serious thing, and I can't stand bozos like Rich Kleiman, and I love you, Draymond Green, but check yourself when you say, oh, the media. The media is an easy target. You don't want freedom of the press? Get the hell out of here. Go live in North Korea and see what that's like.
I didn't know where you're going with the North Korea thing. Promise we won't get into dictatorships on the other side, but
freedom of the press.
Don't tempt me. Yeah, we'll dig more. Also, we do have to get to your GOAT talk on the other side, too. 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone, Warriors this week. We'll be back after this. We got hour and a half left. We'll talk to you on this side.
Hey, it's Willard and Dips for Safeway. Enjoy these amazing.
Ingram steps into a triple right side. Nothing there. And a rebound for Looney. He was the only one back. Kuminga baseball pass. Podziemski the heel for three. Got it! Chaos for Golden State. And they get a 3-ball out of it. Podziemski with a beautiful assist. He could have gone in for a layup and said, no, I've got Buddy behind me. Give the shooter a shot.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
The great Tim Roy, after last night's 112-108 win for the Golden State Warriors over the New Orleans Pelicans, 12-3 on the young year to the knockout stage of the NBA Emirates Cup. Evan Giddings alongside Dan Devone with you on Warriors This Week. And Dan, you done it now. You riled him up, man. You pissed him off, just like apparently Rich Kleiman got to you.
Who did I piss off?
Let's go to Philip. Wants to talk about Draymond. Philip, what's going on? You're on Warriors This Week. How are you?
Yeah, hi. I know historically speaking with Draymond, he's been kind of a lightning rod for a lot of controversy and things that he's said and done. But I don't know why you guys are going so hard on him now. I mean, he's been saying and doing a lot of really great things that have been encouraging the other players. What he said about Brandon the other night was dead on. It was right on what he said. And he said, I hope he's listening. And then, he comes back, gets 20-plus minutes, scores 11 points, has 5 rebounds, is very active defensively. And so he's saying a lot of really great things that are, willing these younger players to greener, higher heights, so to speak. So I'd go a little easy on him if he says a couple of little things that aren't so savory about the media,
Gotcha, Philip. No, I think overall, what Draymond said about Pods is true. Like, he's speaking to the fact that he's put a lot of pressure on himself, that he's clearly trying to make leaps and bounds when he probably needs to walk a little bit before he sprints. But the part that, might be nitpicking, I don't necessarily think so. The part about putting it on the media, I think, is also strategic because he's trying to, again, find something for Brandon to place those, I don't know, whatever has been ailing him. He was fine last night, but whatever's been ailing him, not on himself. He's trying to alleviate pressure. And if Draymond has to put it on the media, then so be it.
Yeah, I like Draymond Green. I'm on record as saying I'm a fan of this guy. So please don't misconstrue things here.
No, 408. I don't call him the White Mamba, but
who?
Podziemski. Someone was saying I'm all in on the White Mamba.
Was Philip the caller?
Yeah.
So Phil, I do draw a line when you take the easy way out and point a finger at the media and just clump us all together and saying it's your fault. It's the media's fault. While I love Draymond, and I think one of the reasons why we all, whether you love him or hate him, is that this guy is authentic. And we crave authenticity. It's one of the reasons why I'm not a LeBron James fan. Well, I love LeBron. I recognize him as, if you want to have the GOAT conversation. But I think part of the problem with LeBron James is that I don't think that we perceive that there's a real, authentic sort of person behind all of that. That aside, when it comes to Draymond, while I give him his respect and he's so poignant, I like his podcast. And when he says things, I typically listen because there's usually meat on that bone. But I'm sorry, man, when you cross a line and saying it's your fault, the media, stop it. I can't go there. And maybe I'm overly sensitive, but I do feel compelled from this side of the fence to sort of stand up and defend not only the media, but to sort of clarify exactly what it is that you mean by that, Draymond, because it's an easy scapegoat. And a lot of people do it these days. And I don't think that there's any merit to it. And I'm not necessarily, I think across the board in terms of the way the media is being perceived these days is not accurate. And again, when I hear it, I just feel compelled to call it out.
Well, the media can also be responsible for helping players. That's the other side of this too, is sure, the media can place pressure and expectation and sometimes narratives that are unfair, but it works the other way too. A big reason why Podziemski might be untouchable is because of how the media talked about him last year.
He was the darling.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the case for the entire league. We read about players that we don't necessarily see, but then we go watch them. in the NBA, I've been fascinated with this player, Jared McCain, for Philadelphia. The Sixers have been a laughingstock so far, and the media has not been very kind to them, and I think deservedly so, outside of a couple of maybe over-the-line comments. But because of the Sixers and because of their media coverage, I've been very interested in Jared McCain. He's had, I think, 5 straight 20-point games. Might have come to an end last night, but McCain's been kind of the fill-in guy for Maxey while he's been out, and he's this rookie out of Duke, and he's basically the only positive thing that is happening with the Sixers right now. I know about him, and I want to watch him because of the media and how they're covering him. So it works both ways. I just want to make that clear, too, that while some media is probably unfair, and I think the majority of it, to your point, Dan, is on social media, media coverage can also be positive.
Yeah, and I'm really careful that I think all of us cannot conflate the two. Social media is one thing. The media, so to speak, is something entirely different. By the way, where's our man, Jersey Ken? Don Henley. Are you familiar with Don Henley?
The singer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Don Henley back in the day, and maybe Phil, you can go bring up the lyrics or just go ahead and play this song for you. It's called...
I saw Don Henley a couple years ago. The Eagles singer, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, Hotel California.
Well, he had a song called Dirty Laundry back in the day. And you can just read the lyrics from that. And that's essentially, it's never changed. It's the way we've always been. Is it necessarily right when you talk about the media? Does it take its pot shots? Are there some bozos in the media? Hell yeah. But when you become a professional athlete, you know what it is that you're signing up for, especially in a market like Philadelphia, New York, Boston. There's a lot of pressure, especially if you're going to be good. There's a lot of money and there's a lot of pressure that comes along with that. And nothing's changed. Suddenly haven't gotten negative. Are you reading the lyrics? Kick them up, kick them when they're up, kick them when they're down?
No. I'm reading something from the Comcast business text line, which is for the 510. I wonder how Draymond will feel about the media when he goes to work with Chuck, Shaq, Ernie, and Kenny. Well, he does, and he has. And that's, I don't know, that to me is kind of a separate entity. That show specifically, I think, does a great job at being entertaining, being critical. But people say that Charles Barkley's too negative. And I think he's just honest and open and genuine. That's all you can ask for. Leo on the 880's been hanging around for a while, and I want to get him on, Dan. Can we go to Leo, please, Steven? Leo, what's up? You're on Warriors this week. How are you?
Hey, doing great. Thank you. I just was going to redirect it to the Warrior free throw shooting problems. And I don't know if you guys seen any of the YouTube videos of South Korea. So this isn't North Korea, so they get to make their own choice. But they bank the ball in. And these guys can hit low 80s. And I was just wondering for, the perpetual 70%ers, Draymond, Wiggins, now it looks like Kuminga, if this wouldn't be worth it. Because these guys can shoot, but there's something about a free throw that doesn't work. But check out the YouTube videos of the guys banking it in, and, they'll hit the low 80s pretty consistently.
All right, South Korea, they bank free throws.
I have no idea what
they get the choice to shoot it however they want.
They get I got you, Leo. Appreciate the tongue-in-cheek comment from our last segment about dictatorship. But
I really do mean that. When you take away when you want the media to be one way, and you're like, I want you guys to be happy and do good stories. Well, no, that's not the way this thing works. And the reason why you're able to exist in a democratic society is because you have the checks and balances of the quote-unquote free press. When you remove the free press, you become North Korea. You become El Salvador. You become the TASS, which is state-run media in a place called Russia. So I don't take things what Draymond's saying lightly. And he needs to check himself. If he wants to go there and point fingers and be accusatory and throw everything under this umbrella, it's you, the media. Bro, be very careful of what it is that you're doing right now, because that's a sensitive subject for a lot of people.
Well, by the way, my friend went to El Salvador a couple weeks ago.
They have a dictator, don't they?
I'm not sure anymore. He said it was a lot safer to get down there to El Salvador. I used to live next to a guy in Winston-Salem. It's North Carolina. I used to live next to a guy who was from El Salvador, and he had some terrible stories. I mean, just absolutely god-awful. You talk about a rough upbringing. This guy was, during our sessions outside, we would just kind of sit out, have a pop, and he would just, it's like the guy had war stories to get off his chest. Anyways, the thing with the Warriors and the free throw shooting, I don't know if it's a big concern for me, Dan, but anytime you're the last in the league at something, you probably, I don't know. I don't really know how you address it, though.
You can't.
Like, what are you going to stand in line and shoot free throws for 2 hours like they do in high school or middle school?
I mean, you got to run laps. It's just like it's a personal thing. And it's all it is. It's between your ears, man. It's just confidence, right? I mean, Wiggins got up there and he looked good last night.
He made all 9 free throws.
Jonathan Kuminga's just got it. It's just confidence. And Kerr's right. You can't coach that. It's just make your free throws. You can work on it. It's just those gremlins get in between your ears. You know, speaking of, we haven't talked about Wiggins because we're all about negativity. But Wiggins, you know why last night was sort of a significant win for the Warriors? And I always mention this because you're stacking wins. And listen, did the Warriors play well last night?
Well, they went 3-0 group play.
Yeah, the Warriors I don't think played very well collectively as a team. Steph was sort of okay, sort of pedestrian. Not a very good game from Draymond, especially towards the end of the contest. But the Warriors win. And that, to me, is as significant as anything else. It's as significant as beating Boston in front of a nationally televised audience on the road at Boston. It's as big as being OKC. It's as big as beating Dallas in the return of Clay. Although it may sort of fly under the radar. And the reason why it's significant is if you can win games where you're not at optimal level and you're stacking wins, and also for this very reason, games like that should have an asterisk next to it. Because what's the one thing that we talk about? Is that we're too reliant on Steph. It's a one-dimensional team. When Steph scores less than 20 points and he's not the leading scorer and you win, to me, that's a game that you'd like to see a lot more of. I think that's a strong indicator that you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, Curry doesn't have to do as much, and that's perfect because he's also at an age where you shouldn't want him to play 35 minutes a night. You know, one of the reasons why I think Kevin Durant has dealt with some not terrible injuries in recent memory, but he's going to miss a few weeks from time to time. It's because, like, you see how many minutes he's been playing the last couple of years for the Suns? I mean, they just run him into the ground. He plays 37, 38, 39 minutes a game.
Who's this?
Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
And his body's obviously a lot different than Steph's. His game is different, but I don't want my 36-year-old point guard playing 35 minutes a night unless he absolutely has to. And that's where the Warriors' depth has been so impressive to me. Being able to win games like last night, it wasn't pretty. Blowing out the Atlanta Hawks, I guess, was a little more pretty from the standpoint of the point differential, although I think the Hawks are absolutely god-awful. But the Warriors are less dependent this season on Curry than they have been perhaps ever. You know, in regards to winning games, I mean, when they had KD and Clay and Dre, you know, maybe they didn't need Steph. But of the post-Kevin Durant era, this season so far has been less dependent on Curry than I've seen.
Can I give you my Curry GOAT talk?
Yeah, get into it.
Can't stand GOAT conversations. If you and we talked about grabbing a beer tonight. If you're like, yeah, who do you think is the greatest of all time?
Steven, you're invited. Ken, too.
Let's go. I'm not engaging you in a GOAT conversation with a beer in my hand. But, however...
What about a glass of water?
At a bar? What?
Oh, you got water right now, I'm saying. Sorry.
Let me just say this. While I can't stand the conversation, I will do it in this one instance. So listen up, people. As we get further along, and the Golden State Warriors are 12-3, and now the conversation at least becomes a little bit more serious at this surprise, and it might be real, and they could be a top 3 seed. And if you're a top 3 seed, as they were the last time they won an NBA championship, we start thinking about Western Conference Finals. I know I'm getting ahead of myself.
God, you are everything that you hate.
This team looks a little bit more legitimate with every passing day. And listen, it's gaining momentum as they stack wins and as the further we get into this season. If for some reason now I get completely ahead of myself, they win an NBA championship this year, Steph Curry is now in that conversation where you say that's the greatest of all time. It's Michael Jordan and it's Steph Curry in that. If you want to sit there and go back and forth with LeBron James, we can do that. But Steph Curry now is not a matter of, is he in the top 10? No. It goes Michael Jordan. It goes Steph Curry in terms of the greatest to ever do it. If he wins a chip, if he can win a title with the Splash Brothers, win one with Kevin Durant, Kevin Durant leaves town, he wins one without Kevin Durant. And if he wins one with Kyle Anderson, GP2, and Lindy Waters, my man, say hello to the GOAT.
Well, I'm kind of with you. Now, I don't generally like the rankings, but this is where I will give it to you. And not just because if he won this season, he would have 5 and LeBron would have 4. LeBron James is the best player in my lifetime that I have ever watched play basketball. Curry is a close second. If Steph Curry wins a championship with this team, I will recognize him as the best player of his generation. I think that catapults him over LeBron. We're getting way too far ahead of ourselves. And just thinking about Lindy Waters III starting Game 6 of an NBA Finals is a shocking thought. However, especially at age 36, what Curry continues to do in the brightest moments, whether it was in Paris, which, were you at that game?
No.
I know you were at the Olympics.
I wasn't at any of the basketball games.
You should have lied and would have given us more legitimacy. What he did against Dallas, what he did against Boston, what he did even against OKC. Against the best team so far this season, Curry has proven that his game has not waned. And that's what excites me about the Warriors moving forward. When I said they're less dependent on him than ever, I mean just on a night-to-night basis. Like, they don't need Curry tonight against San Antonio to go for 35. They can win a basketball game if Curry has an off night or scores 16 points. They will need him, and they are still as dependent, if not more than ever, against the best teams. And come playoff time, I do have my concerns about, all right, what are the Warriors going to do to help Curry? Because I don't necessarily think, Dan, they're lining up to make a big splash trade. I don't think that there's a big boy coming this season that's all of a sudden going to give Curry a running mate. I think they will make a move this year, but I don't think they're going to be pairing Giannis with Curry. I don't think that they're going to be going out and getting a player of that caliber.
No. Hope not.
You don't like Giannis?
Giannis is amazing. But how many times do you and I have to have this conversation?
Okay, this is a different one, though.
No. Because in order to get Giannis, you're going to have to ship everybody. Top-heavy teams don't work in the NBA.
You're only playing Kuminga 15 minutes a game anyways.
Say goodbye to Kuminga, say goodbye to Wiggins, say goodbye to Podziemski, say goodbye to Trace Jackson-Davis, and then say goodbye to all of those draft picks. For what? For Giannis? Top-heavy teams do not work in today's NBA. And to further that, with the number of injuries that we're seeing in today's, rest assured, if Giannis or Steph goes down with an injury, then what?
Is Boston not top-heavy?
No. Boston is very deep, almost as deep as the Warriors.
But their best 3 players are, I would say, all right, obviously Brown, Tatum, Holiday. Derek White's a good player.
Derek White, I'd put him in front of Holiday right now. And Pritchard coming off the bench. I mean, Porzingis is going to be back.
Give up on Kristaps. The guy...
Horford. Oh, they got depth.
The guy's a walking injury designation.
No, I would agree with that.
I mean, he's never been able to stay healthy.
We got to get away from... I somehow have got to convince you that the free agents, the Paul Georges of the world... How glad are you Paul George is not on this team?
Extremely. Okay, stop it. All right, this is not something we're going to relitigate because you throw me under the bus every single time we bring up. I just told you I don't think they're making a big trade. I don't think they're getting a Giannis. I don't think that level of player is coming. And all you want to say is, well, I told you so. Get off your soapbox.
You know, I do, just before we leave Steph Curry, and just to show that the quote-unquote media...
Well, I hope he never leaves.
...can build somebody up. I hope that, what was a line from Tony Montana in Scarface? You ain't never going to see a bad guy like this. Take a good look because you ain't never going to see someone like this again. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to see a bad guy like this again. When he's at the restaurant and he's all coked out and he's just basically drunk and saying, take a good look because you need to point your finger. Everybody point your finger at the back.
There are a couple of those at Thriller last night.
My point is this. As we just end this segment with Steph Curry, I hope everybody just appreciates what it is that we're watching because you ain't never going to see this again, as Tony Montana and Al Pacino once said. This is so special, man. There are kids that have grown up they're like, what, 20, 21 now, that all they know is Steph Curry. And this is so different. Like, you're never going to see this ever again. Not in my lifetime, not in your grandkids' lifetime. This is so cherish this, people. What it is that he's doing in closing games against Boston, OKC on a nightly basis is so unicorn-esque that I think that some people just have a tendency, because it's Steph, we take it for granted.
Well, you just talked about him, if they win a championship, being the greatest player ever. That would be defined as literally never seeing that again. I mean, basketball's been around forever. There's only one Steph. There's only one MJ. There's only one LeBron. There's one of ones. He's one of them. I mean, I think that's where, I guess, if you're going to ask me for rankings, ranking players all time, I think ranking players between generations is difficult, though some have their metrics or the ways they do it. But there are very few one-of-ones. Curry is a one-of-one. And he still is a one-of-one, which is incredible because he's in year 16, I believe. And he's still killing it when he needs to. And I think that's where, like, if you look at his numbers overall this year, I think Curry is averaging about 23 points per game. You know, he's not the player he was maybe 3 years ago over the course of 82. But Curry is a guy that also is savvy enough to understand when he needs to turn it on. He's shooting 45% from three this year. That would be the best mark ever for him. 95% from the stripe, nearly 50% from the field. 23, 6, and 5. He's also quietly averaging damn near 2 steals a game. It's unbelievable what he's able to do. Just physically. Like the shape that he is in, that is one thing that I think the NBA is lacking of the younger generation. It feels like the players that are gym rats are not the best players. And it feels like the best players aren't gym rats. Curry's both. And he always has been. Those are the players that I think the NBA has to try and find or market, because it always, I don't know, some of the younger guys, they just don't necessarily do it for me. But we do got to hit a break. I see his skills in Vallejo. We'll get to you on the other side.
Can we end the Love Fest and just rip Jonathan Kuminga next segment? I mean, I feel like there's a lot of sugar and sap going around the room now with Steph. I think we need to get back to negative media and just go after, at least I'll go after Jonathan Kuminga.
Hey, Draymond. Hey, Draymond. It's Dan Devone's fault.
Knives Out, baby.
I do love those films. And we'll talk about it on the other side of 95.7 The Game.
Valvoline Instant Oil Change is your 15-minute drive-through oil change. Visit their expert technicians.
Pelicans. Right side, Moody. Shoveled it to Draymond. Top of the key. 3. He gets it right back. Draymond Green having an outstanding year from beyond the arc, shooting a career-high 42.9.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
You know, I'm not the oldest guy. I might have an older soul, but I'm only 30 years old. Something that I've learned in my travels, you got to know yourself. You got to know your limits. You got to know when to fold them. Kenny Rogers, you got to know thyself, Dan. And I think the Warriors are a team that knows themselves better than probably, I would say, 90% of basketball teams in the NBA. And that's a big reason why, even when they have it, I wouldn't consider last night against the Pelicans like an on night. I think they were off, especially in the first half defensively. But they know exactly what they need to do, seemingly more than, again, the majority of basketball teams, of just how they need to play to win. And I couldn't say that about the Warriors the last 2 seasons. They've found something early on here, and it feels like they have another level that they can get to.
Well, remember last year they played in more clutch games than anybody?
Yeah.
And I think they were 500 in those clutch games. And in 7 games this year, they're 5-2. And I think a lot of that has to do with defense, specifically, confidence, and a belief that they're going to win the majority of their games. And I think that there's something to Steve Kerr when he says that he's recognizing similarities between the 2022 team and this team. Like, he continually goes there. And I think that I just feel like it's one of those intangibles. It's not necessarily something it's not an algorithm. It's not a stat. It's not a metric. You can't necessarily see it. So I know that like 3/4 of the audience are today's Gen Y, Gen X. Ooh, I need to see a stat. Sometimes winning in sports is just, it's a feel. And I think the Warriors have that locker room right. And I think that there's just a sense of confidence in just about every one of these games. By the way, speaking of Draymond Green, I'm a big fan of this guy.
Well,
but at the end of games, I don't have a lot of confidence in this guy. As Allen Iverson used to say, your booty's getting a little tight. He has a tendency to get a little like.
You got lemon booty?
He gets at the end of games. It wasn't isolated to last night.
Sphincter shrinks.
He's the antithesis of Steph. He sort of has this.
Well, Curry's got his own turnover problems.
No, but late in games, I'm good with Steph Curry and the ball in his hands. I've never had that confidence with Draymond. Like when he was inbounding that pass, I'm like, oh, I could see this coming.
Well, what was the play? I think it was in the Rockets game. There was a big play that Draymond threw away from an inbounds that allowed them, I think, to tie it. I'm not sure if it was against Houston, but yeah, Draymond has had some late game gaffes across his career, but they're also in that situation because of him. 888-957-9570 is the number. Warriors This Week. We got another hour. Again, every single Saturday, 9 to noon here on 95.7 The Game, chopping it up about the Dubs, about some, first hour is a little bit off the rails. You can go back and listen to the Odyssey app. Let's go to Skills in Vallejo. Wants to talk about free throwing. Actually, he's got an agreement with you, Dan. What's up, Skills?
Hey, what's up, guys? Dan, last segment you were talking about basically free throws. What can you do? I mean, when you start missing them at that level, there's only so much you can do besides just keep practicing, keep working hard at it. I played basketball from the time I was 14 till the time I was 38. I've watched the NBA for 30 years. I've seen like some of the crazy things you see with free throws, for example. And we all know DeAndre Jordan, for example, is somebody who, clank, brick, clank, air ball, all his free throws. There was one year, though, where he shot 70% over a full season. It was the craziest thing. And then he went right back to clank, brick, air ball. Bruce Bowen one year shot .441 from beyond the arc, led the league in three-point percentage, and shot 40% from the line that same year. Mm-hmm. And there was Shaq that was a .622 free throw shooter one year, as bad as he was every other year. So, I mean, like, one thing I just don't want to see the Warriors do is start jacking up more threes to avoid getting fouled. Like Boston, for example, is leading the league with 53s a game. I don't want the Warriors to get up there. They're already fourth with 41 three-point attempts per game. That's just 50 a game would be too many. More than what they're doing right now would be too many. And that's basically just a rambling point I want to make. Have a good day, guys.
Thanks, Skills. Yeah, I think the free throw shooting,
I think Steve Kerr would disagree with him.
About what?
You want more threes.
Yeah, I think that their goal was 50. I mean, they want to be Boston as far as attempts.
Yeah.
And I actually think that with not really Curry and Wiggins are their two ISO players. Kuminga you could throw in there, but he isn't getting as much run. And I don't know if he necessarily needs to if Wiggins is going to be the player he's been so far, which is averaging about 17.5 points in 27 minutes. He's shooting above 40% from three. Went 9 of 9 at the stripe last night, had his first 30-point game of the season. Wiggins has been really good. But if they don't have a ton of ISO players on the floor at the same time, I actually think more threes is a way to just kind of cheat the game a little bit. Like it's a math game. You know, if you shoot 38, 39% from three the way they have so far this season, I actually think that they're going to try and get more up.
Yeah, and we can have a separate conversation about whether threes and what it is that it's doing to the game. There's a lot of people that feel as though it's sort of watering it down, and teams are really homogenous now.
Was that a shot at Lindy?
No.
Okay.
But let's just see him shoot the three a little bit more. And Steph had an interesting interview. I don't know where I saw this, but he was pretty candid. And even he said that threes are sort of tainting the game in a negative way. So, you could have that conversation. But the Warriors have to shoot it. That's what they do. And they got to shoot it at a high clip. Free throw shooting is it's a personal thing. It's just, I don't think you can coach it up. It's just, again, it's confidence. I've always wanted to do this. I want to challenge Rick Barry to a free throw shooting contest because one thing I can do is make my free throws. How old is Rick Barry now? Can he still make his free throws? I bet you still can.
Plays pickleball. I actually saw him at the Warriors. There was like a media pickleball tournament last year. Me and Whitley were partnered. I'd never played pickleball before in my life. We got mossed, but we got a chance to watch Rick Barry play like up front. Dude, he's a beast.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a cheat code because he's still 6'7", long limbs, pretty active. I don't know if he could beat him in a free throw shooting contest, though, Dan.
Well, I'm going to look it up right now.
He's 80 years old.
Oh.
He's 80?
Okay, well.
I think he still got you.
So he shot 90% in his career from the free throw line.
Good Lord.
Underhanded. He was one of the greatest to ever do it. I'm sure he could still shoot that granny thing, and I would love to get him in a one-on-one on a free throw shooting contest because that's one thing that I could do. I used to win those things in college. I won a free throw shooting contest. But anyways, just getting back to it. Yeah, it is. Thank you. It's a personal thing, man. It's not. Yeah, I don't think you can call out a player and say, "Hey, man, you need to make your free throws, especially in a clutch moments." They know that. Just work on it.
No, I think that's true, but a player like Wiggins has to shoot 75%. Like they have to be at their career marks because Wiggins is the guy, along with I'd say Kuminga, who are probably your largest volume free throw shooters. Like Steph Curry is obviously shooting 95% from the line, but he's not going to get to the line probably more than 4 or 5 times a game over the course of the season. I think right now he's averaging 3.6 attempts. So the one thing about the Warriors that you never had to worry about, it felt like last year, Dan, would you say free throw shooting was a problem?
No.
They were actually in the bottom half as far as free throw percentage last season. But you never thought about it because in crunch time, which is typically when they apply, you had Curry and Clay on the floor. While Clay had his other deficiencies, he led the league in free throw shooting percentage. Back when they won the championship in 2022, Jordan Poole was also a 90% free thrower. So you always had guys on the floor that could make their foul shots. And so when Wiggins inevitably
I want to say in that
splits,
2022 year, they were bad also, collectively as a team.
I don't think they were one of the league's best. I could be wrong about that. But my point is that you had guys on the floor that could step to the stripe and make free throws. I think Draymond's a guy that, while he might not shoot 80% or 90%, I feel good with him in a big moment at the free throw line.
Draymond?
Yeah.
Really?
Draymond makes big shots.
Really?
Typically.
Qualify that a little more?
Well, this season, what am I looking at here? The numbers would... Let me have this one. All right. Well, I think he made a free throw yesterday to put it to 4.
He missed like 3 of his last 4 free throws.
Yesterday?
He kept that door open with missing those 2 free throws, and then
he's not Anthony Davis.
He's the end of games. There's certain guys where you just have a sense of confidence if the ball's in their hand.
You know who I don't want shooting free throws late in the game? Your boy.
Jackson Davis. Yeah,
Trace Jackson Davis.
That's never been a strength of his.
Throws line drives at that thing.
Yeah.
Like he shoots free throws. I don't know if he caught the end of the Denver Nuggets game. Jamal Murray tried to miss a free throw. Just threw a linea. Just like a Mariano fastball at the rim. Still made it. Like some guys make when they miss. Trace Jackson Davis shoots the same way, but it does not go in. God love him though. But the Warriors the Warriors as a team, the free throw shooting, I think it's a problem, but it's not a problem that I think over the course of time is going to kill them. It might be something in a playoff game that arises.
Where you can't do what you did against the Clippers. Like that's something you can point out and saying, look, if we just made a quarter of our free throws and didn't turn the ball over as frequently.
Yeah, I think it went 9 for 19.
Yeah, you were winning that game.
Well, also the game against Houston when they blew a 31-point lead, I think they missed close to 20 free throws in that game. That was how the Rockets got back into it. So missing free throws I think it's momentum killer. I actually don't think that this Warriors team is one that I would prefer to take a lot of free throws because it feels like that also ruins their flow. When they step to the line, not even if they make them, it just ruins the rhythm that I think their offense is built on. So
Jonathan Kuminga's got to step up and hit his free. Jonathan Kuminga.
He's been underwhelming at the free throw line, to say the least.
He's been underwhelming his career. I like him. I was his biggest fan. But he continues on this trajectory of 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You know, we were talking about Podziemski earlier.
He's like 22 years old.
I know. He's a young man. And it's interesting you bring that up. So, because I think you're right. We have to give him the benefit of the doubt, do we not?
Well, I also think we have to do that with pods, too. Like, quietly, Podziemski is, I think, also 22 or 23. He's not old.
No, he's
Podziemski's part of me. I think he's 21.
Or he's the same. I want to say he's 22.
He's turning 22 this year, but he's 21 years old. His game's more polished.
It's interesting that you mentioned those two. Because Podziemski, as I talked about, he's in his own head about scoring. I think his scoring is going to come around. I think that he's just, for whatever reason, man, he's so focused on every shot as Draymond Green, was able to point out. But he still, to me, is contributing to the basketball team. As we've talked about for a good portion of the early part of the show, is that he's still doing all the other things and making the right pass, balancing the floor, the rebounding. And so he's still giving you winning plays, and he's still very much on the plus side when he's on the floor. Jonathan Kuminga, if he's not scoring the basketball, is giving me nothing. Jonathan Kuminga is not rebounding. He's not taking charges. Jonathan Kuminga is a guy that, again, continues to be one of the more streaky, difficult guys, a paradox, trying to get your arms around and figure this guy out. And I do not want to hear any more of, well, he's adjusting to sort of this 12-man rotation, or he's adjusting to from where a year ago he knew he was getting his minutes and he could shoot his way out of sort of a bad start. Now it's a little different for him. No, enough of that. This is the team. It's like hockey, right? You get on the floor, you've got a limited time to do what it is that you're going to do. And so he continues to be this guy that, while he's 22, I wonder this at times, Evan, whether he'll ever get it. I think he'll always be a scorer. He'll be in this league for a long time. I'm just curious if he'll ever get the it factor, of understand what it takes to be a winner in this league.
Well, I was thinking about Kuminga. He didn't play very well last night against New Orleans, but I was thinking about Kuminga 2 nights ago because the hang-up in the contract or a non-contract with Kuminga this offseason, I don't know, it was $5 million. Warriors wanted in the $30 million range. Kuminga wanted closer to 35 or above, probably. Sees himself as a max player. Take that for what you will. But a player that was taken, I think, 1 spot after him, Franz Wagner, had a 37-point performance, 11 assists, and hit a game winner against the Los Angeles Lakers. I think that was on Thursday night. Kuminga can't do that.
Where was Franz drafted?
Well, he was drafted right after him.
Exactly.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I don't want to rob Kuminga of the opportunity to flourish potentially later in his career. But what he doesn't have the luxury of, and the Warriors don't either, is time.
It's true.
He's young, but they have to make a choice about him. They chose to not extend a contract because they couldn't come to an agreement. But you look around the league, Scotty Barnes came back. I think he helped Toronto beat Minnesota the other night. He's in his class. Cade Cunningham's Detroit Pistons are actually not that bad. They're close to a 500 basketball team. He's in Kuminga's class. He got paid. There are a lot of players that are good in that class that still have room to grow. They're getting better.
Jalen Green.
Absolutely. Jalen Green starting to emerge. Does Kuminga have the same potential they do? Maybe. Is he getting the opportunity that they have? Probably not. But let's say Curry goes down for an extended period of time, the way that Paolo Banchero, the Magic's number one player, is. I think he's coming back soon, but Jonathan Kuminga is not going to have, I don't believe, a game like Franz Wagner did against the Lakers where he basically willed them to victory. Now, he got the benefit of, I think, 2 or 3 missed Anthony Davis free throws, but Wagner took that game over. Kuminga is not at the point in his career yet where he can take over basketball games. Even last year, when he had that extended stretch and he was scoring double digits, how many of those games is he going for 30? How many of those games is he winning and putting the team on his back? He's young, he's growing, he still needs time, but he's not at the point where all the players around him in his class are. And that's what makes it difficult for me to foresee the Warriors giving him big money, is that he just doesn't have that a part of his game yet.
Text line saying, imagine if we had Şengün. Oof. Bob Myers not.
Well, Devone would kick him to the curb for Trace Jackson Davis. That's his guy.
Yeah, they can play alongside each other. You can move Wiggins to the 2. How about that? Wiggins the 2, Şengün, a front court of Şengün, Trace Jackson Davis, and Draymond Green. Thank you, Bob Myers.
A lot of shooting, huh?
Bob Myers missed on Weissman, and it looks as though he may have missed on this draft with Kuminga as well.
All right, Myers was the president of basketball operations for both of those drafts. I'm not entirely convinced that he was entirely convinced about both of those players. I think the rest of that front office also needs to take some ownership for those picks.
It's a collective decision. Certainly Kerr's sitting in on those meetings. Joe Lacob, they let bark, and then once he leaves the room, they're like, okay, let's have the real conversation.
The Wiseman one, I don't necessarily fault them for. That was... There's a lot of contextual factors that matter in that pick. Number one, they were always looking for a center of the future. Number two, I do think they believe they were done winning championships. Number three, the draft was the same day that Klay Thompson tore his Achilles. So that was a trifecta of, well, let's just swing big and hope and pray, even though there wasn't a whole lot about Wiseman that you could even pull from.
You know who was also in Jonathan Kuminga's class is Josh Giddey. And he's the
only other guy that hasn't gotten paid.
Well, here's where I want to go with that. What is it with the guys from down under, from Australia, that refuse to shoot the basketball?
Well, he's not a very good shooter.
He's not, but he does it. He's a reluctant shooter. I saw them against Milwaukee the other night on a plane flight, and I watched like 3/4 of the game, and he got in the lane. He was wide open for like a 16-footer, and he wouldn't pull the trigger. What is it about Australia? Andrew Bogut was the same way. Bogut, I still to this day, I don't know whether Bogut's left-handed or right-handed. Like, he would be 5 feet from the hoop, and he was an amazing athlete for a bit.
He had touch.
Hey, he was a number 1 player taken out of Utah that draft and went to Milwaukee. He's a hell of an athlete, but he would not. Ben Simmons is from Australia, is he not?
Well, yeah, and I don't know which hand he shoots with.
And he won't pull the trigger. Like, what is it from people from Australia that refuse to shoot a basketball?
I got a name for you. Keep an eye on Alexander Ducas. Plays for, not Doofus, Ducas. Plays for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think it was a free agent acquisition signee. Wasn't drafted. The only reason I know about this guy is because you're well aware of the pipeline over in Moraga, California, that filters these Australians to one St. Mary's College. Ducas can shoot the hell out of it. And I believe he was a 40% three-point shooter in college, or close to. That guy can make it rain. But the majority of them, you're right. Thank you. The majority of them are big men or I would say heady players. But, like, I don't know. I think Joe Ingles is Australian, right?
He doesn't, well, Joe Ingles, yeah. Patty Mills.
Back in the day. Yeah, Patty Mills can shoot. Joe Ingles used to be able to shoot. He's done. That's another part about the Timberwolves that scares me, is that their bench is atrocious. I was talking to Steiny about this. He thinks Mike Conley's done. So
I wouldn't go there yet. Speaking of bad benches, what's Denver going to do?
Russell Westbrook, baby.
Oh, man.
Dude, that team, well, first of all, they've never really had a bench, though.
I'll tell you something. No, they didn't. Well, Christian Brown. But here's you want to know who the sixth man of the year is right now? Candidate?
Buddy Hield.
Buddy Hield's one. If you get the next one, man, I'm going to jump over there and kiss you on that forehead.
The sixth man of the year.
Buddy Hield.
Buddy Hield. And who am I?
Ty Jerome.
Oh, yes. Actually, that's a great call. Dude, he is balling.
He had 27 at the half the other day. At the half.
Everybody killing Ty Jerome a couple of years ago because he was playing over whoever. Ty Jerome could shoot it. He's not. He's a solid player. Warriors might have. Dude, see, the Warriors are just. They're just giving gifts away across the league.
I can't fault the Warriors for giving up on Ty Jerome.
For giving up on Ty Jerome. All right, well, now I got to push back on you.
Well, I think more that's more credit to Atkinson than anything else. I mean, they missed on Ty Jerome, yeah, but.
Well, I'm not going to give Kenny Atkinson.
Yeah, what's with the Kenny Atkinson hate? For whatever reason, you're not down with this guy.
I think he's fine.
You think anyone could have stepped in there and was plug and play?
Yes.
No.
Yes. Well, not anybody. Oh, you know another reason why Detroit's doing so well this season? JB Bickerstaff. You know where he was head coach last year?
Yeah, I know.
The Cleveland Cavaliers.
I think Joey Maz is also an underrated coach. I don't think coaching Boston and doing what it is that they did a year ago I don't think he gets enough credit.
Yeah, Anthony Lamb's not doing well 5-0. The coach who does not have a pulse for his team, we just saw 2 games ago. And that is Quinn Snyder. First and foremost, you can't wear pink glasses to a game. I mean, Jesus. What are we doing? I'm sorry, man.
What is going on here?
He's always been a pretty boy.
Well, yeah, he looks like a Bond villain, but I don't appreciate the fluorescent bifocals.
Mercer Island, Poverty Rock.
He's such a dookie.
He's a Duke guy.
He's such a dookie.
Yeah.
He is such a dookie.
But I always tell you this, if it's so easy, then why, when Darvin Ham inherited a team that went to the Western Conference Finals the year prior, did he just screw everything up in L.A. last year?
Darvin Scam? I think that's what they're calling him by the end.
And I hate to say this, but J.J. Redick looks like a good coach. Ugh, that hurts. That's painful.
We'll see. I'm still holding out hope that he falls on a sword. Because that's typically what head coaches under LeBron James tend to do. All right, other side, one final segment here on Warriors this week. 888-957-9570 is the number. We can dig back into Kuminga. I also want to have a conversation about Moses Moody because he's a player that has, I think for his entire career, just kind of flown under the radar. But I have some thoughts about him on the other side as it relates to the Warriors starting lineup. And really, they're strong 12-3 start. They are number 1 in the Western Conference. They are the best team in the West. And they're playing some damn good basketball. Warriors this week will be back after this with Evan Giddings and Dan Devone on 95.7 The Game.
Hey, it's Willard and Dibs for Safeway. Enjoy.
Screen by GP2. Curry, bad pass to Wiggins, gets it back. Curry, pump fake, takes the dribble, rattles home the 3-ball. 72-71 Warriors.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Evan Giddings, Dan Devone, every single Saturday, 9 to noon. Warriors This Week, 95.7 The Game. The Warriors take on the San Antonio Spurs tonight in San Antonio at 5:30. Warriors Live, 4:30 with Mark Grandia, as always, presented by Xfinity. I don't know if Wembanyama is going to play tonight, Dan. He's questionable. He's been out for a couple games, but the
Speaking
Warriors...
of sophomore slumps.
What?
Bit of a slump.
Okay, so he's in a slump, but Podziemski's not?
No, Podziemski clearly is shooting the ball, yeah.
But
not a slump.
You wouldn't let me call it a sophomore slump.
Well, because...
Now my shoulders are slumped.
Because I think when you say sophomore slump, you're insinuating that he's not playing well this year. And I'm saying he is. He's not shooting it well.
I think Wembanyama's playing pretty well this year, outside of the fact he's been hurt.
Slump, everything being relative, right?
Speaking of Pods and
because
Wemby.
I mean, what it is that was the expectations of him after last year were pretty lofty.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
yeah. That's what I mean.
Oh, no, you can make the case that he could have been Defensive Player of the Year in his rookie season. He's incredible. Do you remember last season? I forget which month it was, but Wemby was, Rookie of the Month or something. And Podziemski came in second. And Podziemski quote tweeted the award rankings and said something like, he put his own rankings on there. He's like, I was first in plus minus. I was first in, I don't know, charges taken. And all these random stats, like Wemby averaged, 25, 15, and 5 with 4 blocks a game over this month. And Podziemski was like legitimately peeved by the fact that he was number 1 in plus minus for the month and didn't win over Wembanyama. I mean, he is the most confident player on the Warriors. I firmly believe that. Although it is strange that he's quietly like a 65% free throw shooter.
Is he?
Yeah, last year he only shot 64% or something like that. Limited attempts, but still. Kind of, yeah, that's right. I do have a man crush on Wemby 224. I do. And just like Dan's got a man crush on TJD.
Wemby's got to learn to play inside. He's got to learn to play in the paint. I know it's a challenge for every European.
Well, he weighs as much as you do.
No, I'm seriously, this guy's, it's so funny. I mentioned this last week, so I watched part of his game. And when he gets down on a post, he's getting rooted out by guys who are half his size. Like I saw him against the Lakers, and Austin Reeves was rooting him out of the paint. Like, come on, that shouldn't happen. Like, there's Porzingis, there's such an uncomfortable factor to these guys when they have to play with their back to the basket. And there was a time when I was a kid, if you were 7 feet tall and you wanted to go stand outside and shoot a 3, go back to take that slow boat back to Croatia because you were not playing in the United States. Get your butt down in the post with your back to the hoop. Give me a target with your left hand, and then I'll give you the bounce pass or I'll throw you an entry pass. And we've become we're so far removed from that these players today are so much more comfortable facing the hoop that they're a fish out of water in terms of getting in sort of that traditional position of where centers used to live and breathe back in the day.
No, I want Wemby taking threes.
No, that's part of his game, but it'd be nice if you can give me a little inside out. If you could be a little bit, Evan Mobley. Mobley could shoot a 3.
Yeah, he's okay. I mean, I think Wembanyama's in a good place.
Special.
Spurs are also not a bad team. Chris Paul's helping them a lot. Harrison Barnes is helping them a lot.
Yeah.
Again, Warriors just littered all over the league, Dan.
Yeah, Chris Paul's helping him a little bit. He's an old man.
He is. He's averaging 11-9 for my fantasy team, though. This is from the 510, the Comcast Business Text line. Huge contributions from two guys that haven't been talked about, Jerry Stackhouse and Terry Stotts.
Good call.
Great offense and defensive coaching. I think, to me...
Both will be gone.
Well...
Stack, no doubts.
Stackhouse probably more than Stotts, just because Stotts has been a head coach before.
And he was a good one.
Oh, yeah. Those Portland teams were overachievers. That was actually when I was living in Oregon. Those were fun.
Those were the McCollum Dame days, right?
Yeah. He was the head coach when they played the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. They had no business being there, those teams. That's where I think Dame gets a little bit underrated and will be at the end of his career just because he's kind of fizzling out in Milwaukee. Damian Lillard was a freaking bad dude. That dude was
control.
As a one, maybe not the best, but he is one of the greatest ever. Lace him up. 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone. Let's talk to Gloria in San Francisco. Wants to chime in on Kuminga. Gloria, how are you? What's going on?
I'm doing great as we get a little break from the rain.
Yeah.
I want to just talk overall just about how gritty the Warriors team is. And I'm glad that the caller gave or the text gave Stackhouse and Stott their credit. I think the Warriors' grit and their personality stems a lot from that. I think Kerr is calling a lot more plays. He's doing a lot more X's and O's with this team. And this team has played, and they're gelling, and they're playing another year together. So now the youngins are catching up, and they're playing Warriors-style basketball. About Kuminga, sometimes it's painful to watch him. He has all the skill sets. But his decision-making, which has improved greatly, it seems like he's still forcing things a little bit. If we can remain patient with him, I think that he can become even more of an asset for us. He is one of our only true athletic players on our team. A lot of our other players are all skilled positions. The way they're playing with their bench, I love it. It's suited for regular season. I wish they had more size under the paint, but having said that, I love their rebounding. They're overachieving in that area. Buddy Hield should be sixth man. I'd just like to know, do you think that they can sustain this type of play in the playoffs? Let's say if they could get a fifth seed. I'll take your comments off the air. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gloria. Well, I think we're still learning about this team, and it stems from the starting lineup conversation we had in the first hour. So I think there's going to be more experimentation. I think there's going to be more switching, or kind of the hierarchy of this 12 or 13-man rotation is going to change. And it's going to change on a given night. But I think that's my biggest question in regards to the postseason. I really don't think we know enough about this team yet to see how they'll stack up in the playoffs. I think that having a player like Curry obviously means you have a chance in any game, because on most nights against most teams, he's going to be the best player on the floor. And defensively, they appear to have bought in a way they haven't the last couple of years. I also think the fact that Andrew Wiggins is coming off the best week in his, I would say, well, not in his career, but coming off the best week in probably the last few seasons. Andrew Wiggins looks like 2022 Wiggins mentally. And I think it's manifesting itself in his play. He had 30 points for the first time in damn near a year last night.
I think for the Warriors, or the Golden State, for the Golden State Warriors in the playoffs. Sorry, it got me in the middle of, for some reason, I went on a Doug Gottlieb tangent. I wanted to see how Wisconsin
where
was doing.
Your mind goes.
I can't stand Doug Gottlieb, and I was just curious as to where Wisconsin, Green Bay, how they were doing this year in college basketball.
He's probably more concerned about his radio show ratings.
You and I talked about this. How in the world can you maintain a radio talk show and be the head coach of a basketball team at a D1 basketball team in college basketball these days?
I'm just imagining us finishing the show, and then you and I driving to St. Mary's. Like, I have a game there later. They play Cal Poly at 5. But us driving to St. Mary's,
Coaching
and then
game.
you putting a suit on and getting on the sideline.
It's just, no, not in today's game. You got to devote way too much time to it. That aside, no, getting back to Gloria, by the way, she called last week. Gloria, I want Moya, because Gloria's right on here. When it comes to the postseason, I think a couple of things have to happen. First and foremost, you have to find out who that number 2 is. Like, I think whether it's Wiggins.
I think it is Wiggins.
Okay, if it's Wiggins and this continues, that's a good thing. Otherwise, go get Jimmy Butler. Because when the playoffs hit, well, because you don't have to give up.
My God.
You don't have to give up.
This was the guy that you were killing me for this summer.
No, I don't want. I'm just being facetious. I'm just saying you have to establish.
Wow, dude.
The number 2.
Thank you, Chris.
You have to have the number 2. That has to be in place. Because when the playoffs start and it's the last 3 minutes of a quote unquote clutch game, He can't be. Is it Wiggins? I don't know. Maybe Jonathan Kuminga. Let's get Buddy Hield free on a pin down. No, that has to be taken care of prior to the playoffs.
I actually don't think that. Look, Jimmy Butler was also a guy that I thought they might be able to acquire, but
It's
again,
too much money.
Well, he's an expiring. He's going to come off at the end of this year, I think. But he already said he didn't want to pick up his player option. He has a player option for next year, but he wants a new contract. I don't know if the Warriors give it to him. The point is, I also think because of their number 2, Wiggins. What do we talk about all offseason? If they're going to swing a big trade, if they're going to acquire a big money player, the guy that was going to be involved in any deal was Andrew Wiggins. Because outside of Curry and Draymond, he's the only one that makes enough money. I think Andrew Wiggins has played himself back into a guy that the Warriors will prioritize keeping instead of looking to actively deal, which they've been trying to do. I know that I haven't been the biggest Wiggins fan. The Warriors have been trying to move him for the better part of the last year. That has now changed. And it's changed because of his work. It's changed, unfortunately, because of some tragedy that befell him and his family this summer. But it has basically brought him back. I think Wiggins looks free. He looks like he's playing with confidence in a system that is maximizing his skill set. And I think he's played himself into the Warriors' official number 2 option again.
And he's 29. He's in that sweet spot.
He's in year 12, but
he's
got a lot of miles.
No, he does. But he's still, he's still on the right side of 30. Yeah, I think the number 2 has to be, if it's Wiggins, we need to see a lot more. See, here's the thing with Wiggins. Before we anoint him as being that guy, here's the problem is that he has just a tendency to do that disappearing act. Like, where'd he go? What happened?
Well, literally.
No, I'm not even saying physically leaving the team. I mean, he could be right there on the floor and you're still saying, well, what happened? Like he just played 32 minutes. I don't even remember that. He has a tendency to go there. And so if there's one player where you need to see sort of a longer sort of sample size of being who he is right now, it's I'm going to hold my breath and hold out a little bit longer. And I need to see a little bit more of this from one Andrew Wiggins because of the past and the history.
I agree, but I also think that Wiggins, similar to, all right, you were talking about with Pajemski, one of the reasons why you wouldn't say that he's taken a step backwards is because, well, he's not shooting well. He does other things, right?
Yeah.
He moves the ball. He can draw charges. He plays within the team. He does other things. I think that's where Wiggins is not, he's unlike Kuminga, where if Kuminga doesn't score, he doesn't help you. If Wiggins doesn't score, he's still your number 1 perimeter defender, or at least he's looked like it this year. I also think that quietly he took a step back defensively each of the past 2 seasons, especially last year. I think he was getting blown by a lot more than I'd become accustomed to seeing. But this year, for example, against Dallas, he only scored 8 points. Like he didn't light it up offensively, but the Warriors were able to secure that victory and come from behind because he was guarding Doncic, who didn't score a single point in the fourth quarter of that game. So Wiggins is a player that I think also can help you when he's bought in, which he appears to be, on the defensive end, which appears to be the Warriors' calling card anyways.
Well, the buy-in is everything. That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's. I think that's fair. I think the criticism of Wiggins, and a lot of it's visual, right? He doesn't look like a very energetic person. Even at the podium, he had 30 points last night, and it was like he scored 2 points and his cat died. You're not going to get that from him. But I think it's fair to wonder about that. Just like I also think it's fair to wonder if Draymond Green can keep his mind frame in the same peaceful place.
Is Draymond Green a changed man?
No.
Yeah.
He's a ticking time bomb. But I don't think that bomb has to be Hiroshima like it was last year. With all due respect.
Shouldn't laugh.
No, I know. Sorry, bad reference. My point is it can be a minor explosion the way it was against Memphis. And I was actually delightfully surprised that after he got ejected from that game, that he didn't talk about the rest of the podium. Steve Kerr was the one that took a shot at the Zebras. Draymond let it go, and he was talking about like Macklin Celebrini and how he's a puckhead or something.
I think that when he got ejected from that game, it's just because he chirps the whole game. It gets to a point where it's just, I think referees, because everybody's saying, well, why did you get ejected? What happened? Yeah, what? The incident seemed to be so mild. Why'd you get thrown out of the game? And I think refs, after hearing from Draymond through the course of an entire game, just get to a boiling point. Like, that's enough. Get the hell out of here.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, Draymond has to have that. He's got to walk that razor's edge in order for him to be who he is. And, you know.
No, I agree. That is who he has to be. And I think that winning helps. It's obviously helped everybody. It's easier to buy in. It's easier to sit with a relinquished role. It's easier to play freely. And it's easier to have confidence that you are going to win games when you're 12-3. You know, I have questions about how the Warriors will react if they go through a slump. You know, if they, 12-3.
Who's the best team right now, as we just sort of look at the landscape of the Western Conference? Who do you think gives the Warriors, who stands between the Warriors and getting to the NBA Finals?
OKC.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think.
Are they beatable? They beat them once.
Yeah, but Chet Holmgren got hurt.
Yep.
We haven't seen them with Hartenstein. I mean, Oklahoma City has not been at full strength the entire season. And they're still on pace for like 60 wins. So I think it's Oklahoma City.
And they do it with defense, too.
Yeah, they're really good. Yeah. Like they're a team that profiles to give the Warriors trouble because they're long. They have a lot of wings. I mean, the Warriors basically tried to build their roster kind of around what I think Oklahoma City and Boston did last year.
Sam Presti is a little genius, man.
I don't even know if he's that small, but
he's small.
Hey, is he?
Oh, he is so, because he started with Seattle. I had him on my show. He is the most unassuming. Well, sort of like that. Is it Kevin Demoff? I think I told you the story. He's the president of the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah.
And I was speaking at an event, and he was there, and like during one of the breaks, I was struck up this conversation with this guy who was, I thought he was like doing janitorial work. No slight against people that do a hard day's work being janitors, but I mean, he just had these glasses and jeans and was very slight build, and he asked me where I was from. I said San Francisco. I'm like, yeah, I hate LA teams, can't stand the Rams. And we were making conversation. I was like, who are you? He said, I'm Kevin Demoff. I happen to be the president of the Los Angeles Rams. Sam Presti's the same way. Sam Presti, who is the GM, the architect of OKC, is just total egghead, full-on egghead. But that team is, because when you think about cores, like that's what you want. If Jalen Williams, SGA, Chet Holmgren, I don't know, you can throw in Lou Dort or whomever. When your core is that good, but that young, they're like 20, I want to say 23 across the board. Like that, that's the envy of every NBA team. Because there's better cores out there, I think, or there's really good core. Like Denver's core of Porter, Gordon, and then you can throw Jamal Murray and Jokic, certainly the Joker. But they're like 30. They're 29, 30.
Well, they're also expensive. That's what the next decision that Presti's going to have to make is who you pay, how much you pay, and how does that affect the rest of your team. I think a reason why they are better than they were last year is because they were able to make a free agency acquisition like Hartenstein. They traded Josh Giddey, who kind of played himself out of the rotation at times last year. They traded him for a plus defender in Caruso. So they got better. The one thing, oh God, I saved this point till the very end of the show. I think Moses Moody's got to start.
I'm like Linda Blair in The Exorcist. My head went all the way around.
Moses Moody has to start.
From Sam Presti in OKC, all of a sudden it's Moses Moody's going to start.
It is, yeah. Well, I had to make this point. I feel like I had a tease that didn't pay off. Moses Moody should be the starting shooting guard.
All of a sudden, we've been through Buddy Hield. We talked about Lindy Waters. We talked about Podziemski. And now, with 30 seconds to go on the show, you're just hitting me over the head with Moses Moody's the guy.
That's what I do. I left the brick at home, so I had to hit you with that.
Why do you like Moses? And why do you think he doesn't get run? Like I always,
because he's just a guy.
If we're sitting there scratching our head, I always defer to Steve Kerr because he knows he's behind the curtain. And if he's telling everybody there's a reason why I don't play. What do you think, Steve Kerr's an idiot or Steve Kerr wants to lose games? If Jonathan Kuminga's not getting run, if Moses Moody's not getting run, there's a reason for that.
No, but there's also room to question a head coach. Like I think Kyle Shanahan's brilliant. I don't think he's had a great year. You're not firing him or anything. Same with Steve Kerr. I think that Moses Moody, if given the amount of minutes that Lindy Waters is receiving, The biggest reason I don't think Moses Moody played a lot last year is because he wasn't a consistent shooter. This year he's shooting 41% from three. He's not as maybe laterally quick as Waters. I don't know if he does everything defensively that Lindy does, but I think he's pretty comparable. And I think that Moody's also a player that you've invested money into. They gave him 3 years. Part. Like, what are you waiting for at this point?
They disrespect him, but yet they recognize value because they invested in him.
He's also started, and I realize his starting stints weren't flashy. You know, he hasn't had a 30-point performance or anything, but I think with proper tick, Moses Moody is a guy that can help the Warriors with what they are kind of missing without Melton, which is a two-way player. I think Waters is a solid floor player. He doesn't raise your ceiling very much. He keeps the status quo, but the Warriors starting lineup, I think, needs to be shaken up because it's the one area that they kind of get hurt at the beginning of games. And I thought last night against the Pelicans, for the most part, they got outplayed. So I don't know if it's Podziemski. I would lean towards Moody, but I do think the Warriors should and will shake up that 2 spot moving forward.
Yeah, I think you put a lot more emphasis on it than I do. I think I've bought into the 12 and 13 deep. So start whoever it is that you want. You know you're going to see GP2 in the first 5 minutes, and they'll play 11 guys in that first quarter. I like the hockey analogy. Just bring in
the line changes.
The line changes and guys going all out, knowing that you're going to go sit again. I think
that works against bad teams. I guess because a lot of the questions we've had about today is how much staying power do they have. I think in the regular season they'll be fine with how they run things. You know, I guess I'm maybe getting a bit ahead of myself, but I'm wondering how they'll be able to play against the big boys.
So you think that you need to reduce that to the conventional 8 to 10 people?
Assuming that Curry or Draymond doesn't miss significant time, I think the Warriors have proven that they can win 50 games this season.
I agree with you.
So, but they're going to do it with depth. They're going to do it with their line changes because they can take advantage of a lot of teams that are either top heavy and missing a guy, or the Warriors also have a level that they can get to, like they demonstrated against Dallas. Who was it? PJ Washington didn't play, but you know they had their big boys, Luka and Kyrie. So the Warriors have proven they can hang and play with every good team in basketball outside of Cleveland. And now it's just about figuring out and kind of, I don't know, chipping away at the statue and making sure you're rounding into form.
Speaking of statues, did you see Dwayne Wade's statue?
You want to call that I guess it technically is a statue. What it is not is Dwayne Wade.
It's like somebody running from a burning building.
Dude, it's worse than the Cristiano Ronaldo statue. Have you seen that one?
What is that?
Go Google it after the show. You're going to be mortified. I mean,
how would Dwayne Wade even approve of that? Who is that?
I don't think he did. He literally walked to the podium and said, "Who's that?"
Who's that balding old man that they have up as a...
I don't know. Not one of the greatest shooting guards I've ever seen. That's for sure. It was disrespectful. By the way, we got to be done with statues. I know we got to get out of here in a minute. The Lakers have too many statues. Pat Riley. All right, is Phil Jackson next? JJ Redick going to get a statue when they win a couple championships? And everyone gets a statue in LA. All right, you got the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
That's what they do.
Yeah, give them a star, put them in cement, but they don't need a monument wall of fame, but just a row of statues. Monument Park. That's the one with the Yankees.
It's LA. God bless them. It's what they do.
Just build LeBron a statue for crying out loud. God.
It's in one place where you can walk down.
Stay off social media.
You can walk down Santa Monica Boulevard, be 58 years old with a 21-year-old woman on your arm.
Belichick. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Warriors This Week.
And Robert Kraft, I want to say.
A lot of them. Yeah, that's the real Patriots way. From 9 to noon every single Saturday, Warriors This Week at 95.7 The Game. Again, 5:30 tip, Spurs, Warriors, 4:30 Warriors live. Mark Graney's got you covered pre and post later on today. For Dan Devone, for Steven Risotto, for Ken Luttrell, my name is Evan Giddings saying so long. We'll talk to you next time at 95.7 The Game.
Valvoline Instant Oil Change is your 15-minute